Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest and possibly the nicest wakeboarder on the planet, Olivier Derome. Ollie is a former professional wakeboarder from Quebec, Canada. He has since shifted from being a professional rider to a more behind-the-scenes role within the industry. We talk about the ins and outs of his career, what he's up to now, and a bunch more with Ollie. It was a great chat with him. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, you guys can join the Patreon. It allows you to see who the guests are early. Also have some other exclusive content that's only on Patreon there as well. That means a ton, really helps the podcast. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy the episode.
I approve waterboarding.
They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
One side, air railing.
A new dimension.
All right, we're diving in right now.
Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. Today we welcome on a very special guest, Olivier Derome. Ollie, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy you're here, man. So we'll start off with a few quick questions here. Number one, wake pants, yes or no?
I'll answer sure, yes. I spoke to my wife this week about coming here, or last week, I should say. And I was like, man, so like wake pants, I remember I was a grommet, like I barely could wakeboard, and wake pants were so hot. Everyone wanted to wear them. I went to Canadian Nationals in the year 2000, and like wake pants were the shit. And then by the time like I started making it, wake pants were not cool anymore. And then they started coming back. I always thought they were super cool, and then I was like, nah, they're not that cool. And then I see them again, I'm like, they were always cool.
So you think they're always cool?
Yeah,
Still
I
think
mean, they're
cool?
fine. Like, you know, it's like to each his own.
I agree with that. All right, good stance. Favorite grab?
On a trick, probably melon.
Okay. Straight up.
Little melon poke. And if I'm just doing a grab, like, obviously it's the method. Method is like the iconic board sport grab. It's more than a grab. It's
a trick.
Yeah, it's everything.
How's your switch method?
Not as good as it could have been, because I can't say that I get to practice those or try those very much anymore.
You've tried them though? In the past?
I worked on them for a while, but they're hard. They're really hard.
Extremely hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You always end up going, well, at least for me, I would go switch method, to fakey shit.
Yeah.
Or to regular.
100%. Yeah. Shifty kind of. Most important question, where's Phil Sylvan?
Last I heard, he's back in South Florida.
You talked to him at all?
No, I haven't spoken to him in a while. Like, we text every year, like, quickly, like, happy birthday, and then, like, what's up? Like, real quick little text exchanges. Yeah.
Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get a hold of him in the...
he's harder to get a hold of than my brother.
Your brother, I had no problem getting a hold of.
Well, maybe
I don't know. Maybe he was excited for this though.
Well, maybe he matured. Maybe you're lucky and you're special. Maybe it's like a bit of column A and B.
I think I let him borrow my winch for a while, and maybe this is kind of like a payback for it. Thank you very much, Raph.
Great.
All right, let's dive into the early days of Olivier Derome and the Derome family. So run us through where you're from and kind of how you got started into water sports.
You want to try having a go at what my hometown is?
Can you say it not with the accent first, and then I can try the accent? Because just
Coteau du Lac.
Coteau du Lac.
Great.
Wait, I want to do this. Coteau du Lac.
Yeah. Coteau du Lac.
Coteau du Lac.
Yeah, it's a small town, about 50 minutes west of Montreal, on the water. Very, very fortunate to have been able to spawn in a family that was, into water sports. It's all the passion that came from my dad mostly, and his dad before him. They first saw water skiing when they came to a trip down in Florida. They went to Cypress Gardens, and they brought back skis, and the next year they came back with a kneeboard or something like that, I think, how the story goes. But, my dad, he gave us that passion. He did 3-event skiing and all that, and he wanted his kids to get a taste of it.
How good was your dad at ski jumping?
He was fucking badass. I mean, technology back in that era is not what it is now. Perfect pass this and like special jumpsuits this, because my dad was a jumper especially. But then like the skis and the bindings and like this and that. Back then he told me stories, but I saw the footage. He's just wearing a vest with jean shorts, because that's all you could wear to really break the enema possibility out there. And you just, knife in between the teeth, pirate style, just wait till the last minute, try and cut over, create that build of speed, and send it as far as you can.
But he won a lot of jump contests back then, yeah?
Yeah, he did really good. He was a jumper.
Okay, so when you and the rest of your family is getting into water sports, you guys start with obviously water skiing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and are you doing 3-event or is it?
Well, he first started with all 4 kids. We got our first taste of water skiing. We were on the side of the boat on the boom, and then like I was 18 months. I think my sister was a little older. It got younger and younger. So Raph, I think, was the youngest to do it. But birthday also depends, right? So like I'm a December baby. Raph was a January baby. So it depends also like what month of summer was it, whatever. But my dad told me a story once that like before I was 3, he had gotten me like every summer he'd get me longer and longer. So I went full on and I fell. And then until I was 7, I wanted nothing to do with it.
Skiing?
Yeah.
At all?
Yeah. I didn't want to ski anymore from like 4 to 7.
Why is that?
I guess I was scared and I
over it?
didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. I guess I would have had a bad experience, like in the back, lonely, just waiting for your dad to come save you. I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay, so what other sports? I mean, were you guys into any other sports other than water skiing? Obviously, there's a lot more of the year to fill up than just the 3 or 4 months in the.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
summers.
you know, we kind of did everything. We grew up. We did karate a lot. My older sister and my father and I. So we did karate. Obviously, like I wasn't like playing the team sport, but I was playing hockey at the rink. You know, every week with friends or with dad or
Like just
cousins
pick
or
up
whatnot.
hockey?
No, just like on the pond hockey.
Like pickup hockey is just like you all show
Okay.
up and just play.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just go to the park and you play because there's rinks at every park. Like my hometown, there was like 15,000 people. We had 4 rinks.
Like publicly kept up rinks?
Publicly kept up, maintained by the
That's awesome.
municipality. Like none of them are like full size.
Yeah.
But still, you could literally walk to a park, the closest park to your house, and you could go play.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we grew up. We did a bit of soccer. I mean, we played every sport in the backyard, like baseball, soccer. Like we did it all.
Active family.
Active family. I mean, my favorite thing was the trampoline. Since we got a trampoline, which my grandparents, again, my dad's parents brought back a trampoline from a trip somewhere. And then trampoline, I was like, man, this is cool.
Okay. Did you snowboard at all growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I skipped that one for winter sports.
Okay.
We did skiing a little bit, but then, yeah, snowboarding.
Snowboarding after you learned how to ski.
Yeah, snowboarding. The first time I went snowboarding on the hill, actually, my dad got it was called a black snowboard from Canadian Tire, which is like the Canadian, like, store you can get anything from, like, car parts to, like...
Well, Dylan Miller got his first wakeboard from Canadian Tire.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
So he ripped off, like, the crappy bindings that they had on top of them, and he took some skates, removed the blades, cut out the tongue, bolted them on the board, and then I could fit my little boots inside the skate shell with Velcro straps that he put on. But then he took me to the top of the hill, and then we realized it had no edges. So I was trying to turn down this hill with, like, a 1/4-inch thick plastic rounded edges.
Oh, it's a plastic board?
Yeah.
I know exactly the board you're talking about.
So he said, if you can make it down, I'll get you a real one. So I made my way down that hill.
What age would you say you started snowboarding, and then did you continue snowboarding after that first plastic board?
I was probably around 7, 8,
Okay.
and then I never stopped.
Okay. And then when did wakeboarding kind of come into the picture?
Wakeboarding, right around the same age, I started seeing wakeboarding on TV, and there were I think brothers on the lake that were wakeboarding, probably on a scurfer behind like a PWC, and I already 3-evented at that time, so it must have been 8 or 9. And I was like, Dad, I want to wakeboard, and he's like, Nah, we're 3-event skiing. We're doing this, we're doing that, and then eventually on the last day of 6th grade, I left school early. I got braces, and when I came back, I have my first wakeboard waiting for me.
Okay, I was going to ask how long it took to convince your dad to get that wakeboard.
Oh, minimum 2 years.
2 years?
Minimum 2 years.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Okay, and what boat? I mean, did you guys have a boat at this time? Obviously.
Yeah. We had a ski nautique.
Okay.
Dad never stopped water skiing. He still water skis to the day. Like 20, 30, 40 rides a year, sometimes 50 on a big summer. So, he is a hardcore water skier guy.
Okay.
So, we had a nautique, and he skied. I remember, I have memories of when I was a kid. My dad was, barefooting with his friends. he would organize summer parties with his work, and like he would get everyone to do everything. They'd go tubing, and then they would have the parasails.
Yeah.
So he would launch people out the backyard parasailing all the time, go around the lake
Just
and
for
then
fun?
sink them. Yeah, like that was like he would put on a summer party for his company, and he would take people at home, like, and we'd barbecue and like hang out and be on the water all day. So like by the end of the afternoon, it was like the 1-versus-1 tube contest, who can stay on the tube longest, and it was a head-to-head.
One boat, 2 tubes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that might have happened only once because, like, it probably didn't end well, but, like, that was always kind of, like, the bet, like, who can stay on the tube longest when
I mean,
Julian
that's the
drives.
point of tubing, and for the most part, when you're a kid, like,
Oh, yeah.
and even young adult. So, okay, so set the scene of wakeboarding Canada, these early, what is this, late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, set the scene of what wakeboarding looks like in Canada. For
I
you
mean, I
guys.
didn't know what it was like in the rest of Canada. In my province, there was some events. I went, so like I said, I went as a fan. My dad took me to Canadian Nationals in 2000, year 2000, and there was a lot of people. You know, there were many participants. They were, I mean, wearing wake pants. The level was quite impressive, I thought. Obviously, I had no idea really how everything was going. But, you know, like the scene in Quebec and in Canada, like, it was already a bigger scene than most people can even understand because of all the media. So, like, Quebec being the French province and Canada has a lot of its own media.
Yeah.
So there was, like, much music for Canada. We had Music Plus for Quebec. Then there was TSN for Canada. There was RDS, which is the sports station for Quebec. So all summer, every summer, I can tune in to RDS, the sports station, and they would have water skiing events and wakeboarding events every once in a while. Basically, Canadian Nationals would go on once a year. But then that grew. And then, like, wakeboarding became, you know, part of, like, alternative action sports.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the Music Plus station had, like, an alternative sports, like, events show. And I could watch, like, my hometown heroes, like, my provincial, like, the best riders in Quebec were on TV wakeboarding, like, 3-4 times a summer.
And so
on
that
two
was,
different stations.
broadcast like everybody's homes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then there was obviously, like, the Canadian magazine, there was
Yeah.
Water Ski magazine, then there was Wakeboarding magazine, then Alliance came in. So, like, all of that, but we already had, like, a platform for those sports in our province.
Yeah.
In the rest of the country.
Okay, so who are you riding with back then? I mean, in those early days, besides just your family.
So when I got my first wakeboard, I would wakeboard. Obviously, like, my dad would be pulling us. So he first signed me up to go to a wakeboard camp. It was En Équilibre is what it was called, which means, like, holding your balance. It was like a snow and skate shop owned by Alain Ayoub. Shout out Alain Ayoub. And he put on this camp. And my second door neighbor, so, like, John Ferguson, still not famous, who's done all of Raph's videos. He was my second door neighbor. We're the same age, so we'd jump on the trampoline, we'd watch snowboarding videos, we'd skateboard together, we'd think about wakeboarding together, all that stuff. So he finally was able to get convinced that he wanted to come to the camp with us. Went to the camp, then the second year went again, and then from there, like, I was just, that's all I could think about. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay, I was going to ask, at what point is it kind of like turning from doing it for fun here and there to, okay, this is, I'm taking it seriously now. I'm wakeboarding a lot. This is really what I want to do. Sounds like that point in your life was a couple years at camp really kind of stuck with you wakeboarding wise.
Well, of course, like, you know, growing up with a very motivational go-getter father, and, like, water skiing was his thing. So, like, you know, there were photos and memories and magazines and, like, the photo albums. I would geek out on all that stuff, right? And my dad would bring me on the boat when he went skiing with his friends and all that. So, like, I loved water skiing. And then I grew up, I always skateboarded. Obviously, by then I'd been snowboarding for a while. So, like, without even realizing that, like, I loved alternative action sports, like, that was the next step in, like, my progression because of all the water skiing background. Yeah. So then eventually when it clicked, like, I didn't even realize how much I already loved it before it became, like, a big part of my life.
Yeah.
It just made sense.
Yeah. So you're talking about skating, snowboarding, wakeboarding. I have a question on your stances. Do they change from board sport to board sport?
They sure do.
Run us through that.
Hold on. Who'd you get that from?
I mean, I can't reveal any of my sources on any of this.
course
I got a lot more coming, so.
Okay. So let's start with, I'll run you down the reasons why.
Okay.
So I never realized this until like later on as a older teenager or young adult. I saw a video and photos of me like 6 years old skateboarding in rain boots. Okay. And I was regular, but I would push Mongo. So Fred Gendron, shout out Fred Gendron, Captain Cable. He was one of my dad's employee. He was much younger and he was a skateboarder. And he would come over and hang out at the house every once in a while. So he took me skateboarding one day and he's like, no, you can't push like this. You push like this. So then I became goofy at skateboarding.
Okay.
And then water skiing, drop a ski. I went left foot forward just like I would when I snowboarded. Then wakeboarding came around. I was also regular. But then I went wake skating for the first time, and I was confused because if I was going to try a flat water ollie, I would go goofy. And if I was going to go wake to wake, I wanted to go regular. And then wake surfing came around, and I wanted to surf goofy. I never surfed before in my life before wake surfing. I always dreamed about it. And in my, kid's mind, I was going to be goofy just like I would be on my skateboard. And then it took some years to realize like why and how I'm left foot forward when I'm tied on and right foot forward when I'm not attached.
Fascinating. That is so bizarre to me.
So I don't know if this is true, and we'll have to fact check this, but someone told me once that Parks Bonifay has a similar story. He was meant to be regular, but he's goofy. Something like that. I don't know. We'll have to fact check.
It probably has something to do with, at least a little bit, the water skiing, because I'm always confused. I don't water ski much with one ski, but when I do, I always feel like I'm never confident in which foot I should put forward, because I either want to have stand like a wakeboard, like I would goofy, so left foot and back, but then I also want my dominant foot in the, I don't know. It's weird to me. So
the initial concepts of like when you get a beginner and like you teach them to either ski or snowboard or wakeboard or whatever, there's two different things. One is like you get them to stand side by like their feet together and then look in the distance, and then they're like, what are you doing? And then you just give them a shove from the back, and then whatever foot they step forward with is their leading foot. The other one is like, which foot do you kick a soccer ball with? That should be your foot in the back.
Yeah. Your dominant foot. Yeah. Okay.
That's the typical way, but then it doesn't always work out that way.
I've always done the push test, and I feel like sometimes it doesn't work the way it should, but interesting. So you're kind of all over the place. What are you now? So what is your foiling stance? Actually, I guess that's the real question.
Oh, okay. So I've only foiled strapless.
No strap on.
No strap on.
Okay.
Strapless, foiling, and I went goofy.
Okay. Did you try it regular or just
I've gone e-foiling, and then I've tried both.
Okay.
I could do both, but I'm more, I guess, I would be better when I was goofy.
Okay. Very interesting. Only gone foiling once, strapless? Or a few times?
I've gone foiling maybe 5 times in 6 years.
Not a big fan?
It's growing on me. I just haven't really had the equipment to do it. For starters, I don't own now I do. Now I own a foil board. But I haven't assembled it and taken it out yet. So I guess that doesn't count. But the first few times, there's a lot to foiling, like just how to set it up properly. It's like if you take someone water ski settings, wakeboarding for the first time, like they're going to have a terrible time.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. Well, it was kind of similar in that aspect. The first few times, like it was just starting to happen, like wake foiling. And from being set up in the first roller, big wave, like super pushy, to like riding Brian Grubb's like super advanced full mast. Like it was like 4-foot mast with like a 2-foot board. Like I couldn't lean forward enough to keep the goddamn thing in the water. It felt like I couldn't even last the 8 seconds of a rodeo. Rocker Steiner, shout out.
Okay. All right. So, maybe we can get into foiling a little bit, but all right, let's dive back into growing up. So you mentioned magazines, videos and stuff. Who were some riders that you looked up to or thought were super, rad back in the day?
So obviously like the top pros, and like every generation there was something cool and new about everything that what they were doing, like how the sport was growing also and the progression of all that. But like starting at first, like my first few wakeboard heroes were like the local guys in Quebec. And then I got to realize what the scene was in Canada. Then some of my favorites were in Canada, and that was more attainable. That was more realistic. Like, obviously, I would see, like, Darren and Barley and Murray on TV, and then Parks came around, and Zane, and, like, you know, like, the Gator, and, like, the
huge names.
The first few big names of the industry on TV. But that was so far-fetched to me, you know, like, we have 2.5 months of summer in Quebec. Like, you know, it's winterland. So, like, to think about that was so far away. That being said, like, obviously that's who I idolize. Like, that's, you know, if you ask me who I could watch, I'd want to watch, like, the best of the best every single time.
Sure, yeah. Do you have any videos or movies you had on repeat growing up?
Well, the first few ones were VHS tapes. You know, the tracking and gets all blurry and, like, staticky and whatnot. But, like, if I couldn't do it, I would ask my dad if he could tape all of the wakeboarding that was on TV at any given time. So it was on OLN Network, if I remember correctly, and they would run pro tours. Man, those were the days.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Zane Chuang do an indie glide, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. He did one in his run, then he did a massive one on the double up, and he won the contest. I was like, yeah, glides are the future. Like, grab your board when you get it stretched out.
Glides are sick. I mean, yeah, definitely. Okay, so you probably did a little bit of contests early, you know, when you're starting to get into wakeboarding. But when did you start competing on a regular basis?
On a regular basis, I would say probably 2002. Like, my first few wakeboard contests, I went to Quebec Games, and there was like a junior water ski circuit, and the overall used to include 4 divisions. So it was obviously slalom skiing, jumping, trick skiing, and wakeboarding. So wakeboarding was part of like the Quebec Games and the whole water skiing events thing. And then a couple years later, actually the first time I hit a rail was at a contest. It was a contest behind a jet ski or a PWC, and it was 2 down and backs or something like that. And there was like a little double-sided shotgun, big PVC flat bar, and then just like some kicker. And then I could throw tantrums, so I just hucked tantrums on a kicker. So it was the first time I was hitting a kicker, and I could board slide because I skateboarded and
I was going to say, did you go front Smith or crook, or you straight up
It
board
was
slide?
Probably a really good salad. Or if you've ever played Amped, a good bag lady.
Okay, so doing some contests, and I mean, this is 2002, so how old are you at this point?
2001,
2002.
Yeah, 2001 was that first time I went to that rail contest, and then like 2002, I was like, okay, I want to do contests.
Okay, and at this point, had Raph kind of followed in your footsteps, and is he wakeboarding in Canada with you as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when I started branching off and only wakeboarding from like the 3 events, Raph was still doing 3 events, but he was wakeboarding with John and I more and more. So, like, he would wakeboard with his brother and his neighbor, and then he'd water ski with Dad. So, obviously, I think it's pretty easy to see which one he was like, I want to do more of this.
Yeah, I want to be like my older brother.
So then we started, like, traveling for competition. So, like, God bless my parents. They were so awesome. They were so supportive. Like, there's a contest in Ontario, we're going. 6-hour drive, we're going. Like, I remember the first few times, like, my first wake stock, I was 14 years old. My dad let my cousin, Simon, and his girlfriend at the time take me to Wakestock, and we went camping. It's a 7-hour drive. Like, who knows? It's like the free world. Like, it's crazy. I saw all of my heroes, all the contests, and it was in Bala. So it's like this super small town. It was nuts. It was like a big festival. People were off their faces, but like I can tell what was happening on shore. I was eyes on the water. I probably stood on the shore the whole day just to watch every single person ride. It was epic.
Okay. Speaking of you and Raph and your competitive career, how many people think Raph is older than you?
Oh, more than you think.
I thought he was older than you, if I'm being honest. Initially, like years ago. Is it, I mean, when people talk to you when you first meet him, are they had they always been like, oh, so you're Raph's little brother?
Well, yeah. People, I think, would say that I'm younger because, A, I'm shorter, and Raph is, like, more silent, so, like, he does come off more mature, and I'm kind of like, yeah. So I could see that.
How much older are you than him?
6 years.
6 years. So
Yeah.
quite a big difference. I mean,
Yeah. It was a long time. Like, I always wanted a brother, and I had to wait 6 years for him to even be born. So imagine, like, how much longer before, like, he was actually something I could, like,
communicate
and play with.
Okay, so you're competing. Does he? When does he start competing? I guess because you've been competing for a while. When does he kind of jump on board fully wakeboarding and joining you on the competitions?
He would always compete alongside. When it was wakeboarding divisions, like, obviously, like, I was in the junior man, he was in the boys division, and then, like, on the water ski circuit, he would wakeboard. Quebec games, he would wakeboard, and then, like, his last year competing water skiing also, like, it was a big Quebec game year, and, like, he was expected to, like, I think he was, like, the flag carrier for our territory of the province for the Southwest. He was, like, the flag bearer. So, like, he was expected to win. Big pressure for Raph. And he said he fell apart, but because his level of riding was, I guess, ahead of the curve and the talent, like, and it was INT style, like, point amount for each tricks. So he still won, but he could have done much, much better.
Okay. When is the first time that the Deromes ventured down to Florida?
First time I ventured, down to Florida, we took my parents' old van, and it was Mark Poirier, who is in the documentary as one of Raph's mentor, Phil Joyal, who was a big wakeboarder in Quebec. He also did lots for the sport. He created a winch tour that we had for a couple of summers. It was epic. Mathieu Couture, he was a photographer. He's a photographer. He was a snowboarder, wakeboarded. And then it was John Ferguson and myself. There was 5 people in this van, and then we met Dan Mavry, who was also a Quebecer that used to live at the projects. He was a rail slaughter machine. Shout out Dan Mavry. So we came down to Florida for, like, spring break for 10 days, I think. So that was the first time. 2002.
Okay. And where do you go in Florida? Do you go to the projects?
Well, there was a bunch of us, so we came down. We rode OWC a bunch of days. We went to the projects one day, and the ski caught the rope after I rode, so I was the only one that got to ride.
Bummer.
Yeah, we rode the rail park. We rode one boat set, and then we rode park, and then I was the only one that got to ride.
Bummer. What's OWC like back then?
Ooh, it was cool. I mean, it's similar to what it is now, except that obviously it was all man-made features. They weren't like unit features. They had a transfer box, transfer to flat on the left-hand side. They had a dragon rail, like shotgun up, flat up. They had a big knee breaker, and they had a little knee breaker.
Knee breaker junior.
Yeah, and, like, I missed that era, but there was a big red kicker that had, like, a big transition to it, and that was, like, the knee annihilator. Like, everyone from, like, prior to 2003, probably, if anyone busted their knee at the cable park, that's what they hit.
Okay.
I never got to hit it. Good thing, because I actually blew both my knees, but that could have been a much earlier problem.
So is that your first time riding cable?
No. So we have a cable park in Quebec. It's called the Beach Club. It was called Points Wake Park near the end. It was a Rickson Park that they put in, I think I want to say, like, early 90s.
Really?
Yeah, it's been there for a long, long time.
Full size?
Full size.
Wow. I didn't know it was
Super
that early.
long. It kind of reminds me of the beginner cable at OWC.
Okay.
Like, long distance, like, lengthwise, and then the cable's kind of low and the ropes are really long. So not very good for air tricks. So we had, like, 2 rails, and then the next year we had, like, a 3rd rail. But even when I was like a younger teenager, for me to go, like the first few times we went, it was like, how old are you? You can't come if you're not 16 or something like that. And I was like, what? Like, what? And eventually they let us come, and then it became a problem because Raph wanted to come, and he was of caliber to ride the park, but they wouldn't let him because he was too young. So then we always had to try and find a way around to freaking let him ride. And it made a young kid upset a few times.
Yeah, age restriction. I mean, that's kind of interesting back then.
I mean, the sport was so young, like it's, So yeah, that's the one cable park we had in Canada, but it was never run super well up until a little later on. And then they had a bunch of different features. And then actually two of my friends managed it and ran it for a couple years. So that was probably at its prime. They had some really cool
There were
setups.
some sick features way later on. Sure.
Yannick Thibault, Alexandre Savoie, my boys.
Those are the guys?
Yeah.
Hold it down?
Yeah.
Because I remember they had I think I watched like a Nicola Duck at it where it was like a staircase feature with a down rail and like a hubble edge on the side.
Yeah.
That looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was those guys that were putting that stuff together.
For sure.
Sick. Okay, so I didn't know that cable was there that early.
Yep.
When did you guys get your own cable?
We got our 2-tower 2007, 6, 7?
It was okay. I didn't know how late it was.
2006, 2007. I'm not great. I
Yeah.
remember like the difference between 06 and 07 is quite difficult at this stage. So many things happen,
Okay, so now we're moving into 2006. In 2006, you entered the PWT, the first stop, Ackworth, Georgia. I believe it was your only pro contest that year. From what I saw, you got tied for 80th. So what happened there?
Oof. So like my whole life I wanted to be a pro wakeboarder, right? So I did well in my province. I did well in Canada. I end up moving to the projects to coach. Pat Panakos. Shout out Pat Panakos.
Yeah, we'll get into the project.
Tells me if we're gonna hire one person, we're gonna hire you. And then weeks go on, and I haven't heard back. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be that annoying pest. But like, I keep emailing. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, yeah, okay, you're in. So I move in, train all spring, then show up. I'm so nervous, and like, I don't think people understand how many people tried to qualify on Pro Tour back then. So the top 16 were already pre-qualified. Then the Thursday, yes, the Pro Tour used to start on the Thursday because on Thursday there was about 100 guys that were trying to qualify for 32 spots. So it was 12 heats or 16 heats of like 5, and it was top 2. And you had one shot. And it was ridiculous.
One pass?
No, you had one, obviously, like boat style, one pass, like one shot down and back.
Yeah.
There's rails. There's a transfer box. The only way to hit the transfer box is in the contest. There was no other way. And then, you're going, plus you got to deal with the conditions. And then, obviously, you're intimidated. You're riding against, like, pros that didn't make it, but they're obviously, like,
super good.
Yeah. And, there's a bunch of, like, up-and-coming names. And, like, I got put in a heat. I forget who was in my heat exactly. I think Braden Stromberg, one of Rusty's home dudes. Braden Stromberg was a sick rider. He didn't put his fins on properly. I forget exactly what happened. Maybe it broke on the rail. But he came back to the dock, and his fin was, like, sideways, and it kept grabbing him. And, like, considering his board was messed up like that, he rode super well. But, like, it was just, like, anything could happen. Like, the conditions change. Like, it's kind of open in Ackworth. So if it's a windy day, like, it's not going your way. Anyway, I was so stressed, I crumbled. And I was so upset. And then not long after that, I blew my knee.
Okay, I didn't know.
First year going pro, don't make it, blow your knee.
Okay, so I was talking to Raph, and I don't know if it was this year or I guess when did you move to the projects? Was that early 2006? Right, that was before the first year of the Pro Tour. Yep. Okay, let's talk about that then before we move into more of the competitive stuff and blowing your knee out. So you moved to the projects early spring after kind of pestering Pat, sounds like, for a little bit. Where'd you live at the projects?
So when I first moved into the projects, I lived in the trailer. I believe it's still there. Last time I went, it was still there. So if you're standing on the dock, to the left, there's like a little trailer, basically 2 rooms, kitchen, living room. I was at the far end closer to the road, and Ryan Doyle was my roommate.
Yeah, and did you guys keep that place pretty clean, or?
No. I mean, I had pretty good intentions at first. It just, was not a priority. And, Ryan, if you watch this, Ryan still wake skates, still kills it. He's got a sick winch set up in his backyard. And
Okay.
yeah, you should check it out.
Sick.
You'll love it. But yeah, Ryan cleaning they didn't go well together. Like, I remember one week I made an effort to do all the dishes and to put them back. And the next week, I realized I was the only one that cared and was going to do the dishes because they kept piling up.
I was gonna ask what it's like rooming with Ryan Doyle.
I mean, it was good stuff. Like, he loved video games, and obviously, like, in that generation, we all loved video games.
Yeah, huge.
So, like, at night we'd like play video games and talk wakeboarding and watch movies and all that. But obviously, he'd been there for a while and he was a bit older, so we did hang out every once in a while, which was great. But we, in a good way, also each had our own things going on.
Okay.
So it was a good matchup. It worked out.
Was there ever a black widow that was roaming around the trailer?
Yes. So Ryan is from Ontario, and if I remember correctly, his dad is kind of a national park guide or something like that. So, like, survival in the forest. Like, Doyle used to make his own, like, bow and arrows, and, like, he can survive in nature.
Okay.
I'm not worried about Doyle surviving in nature. Anyhow, so he caught a black widow. We had a fish tank on the wall, suspended with lights, and he would feed it whatever crickets and whatnot he'd catch. And then eventually, actually, this is vivid memory, you just touch a string, he caught a jumping spider, the little black ones with, like, the green fangs and the white stripes.
Yeah.
So he nicknamed it Venom, and he threw it in the same tank, and he kept feeding. And then he would record the kills for each spider. And then eventually, Venom killed the black widow.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the scary part was one time he was clearing the spider tank because the black widow had laid an bag or eggs or whatnot. So he would have to, like, remove it. So he'd put it in a cup and then remove the bag and burn it. But when he turned around, he realized he didn't cover the glass, and the widow was actually headed towards my bedroom. And, like, he caught it, put it back in, everything was good. But just the fact that he told me that, like, I didn't sleep right for a week.
I'd make sure the top is very securely on the lid of that.
Well, I mean, coming from Quebec, like, very sheltered, like, there's nothing out there to kill you, like, water moccasins, gators, black widows, like, I'm nervous, I'm scared.
So, okay, speaking of moving down south, I mean, how did you adapt to living in the United States after being in Canada your whole life?
It was quite easy in a way that, like, I knew why I was there. I wanted to be there more than anything.
Yeah.
So, like, anything was going to do. Anything was going to work. I was down for it. Maybe this is where you're leading. I think so. But where, like, it was different was it was my first time, like, living outside my home with my family. So, like, I would make my own food, grocery run, this and that. So obviously, like, everything that I wanted to have, I would have. And there's no good Mexican restaurants in Quebec early 2000s. So I would go to Taco Bell. And then the next week I'd go one more time. And the next week after that, I'd go to one more time. So there were weeks where I'd go like 3 times a week, 4 times a week to Taco Bell for one meal, but still. For a guy my frame, I put on some LBs.
I was going to say, did you kind of stack up some pounds there for a little bit?
Yeah, I put on 15 pounds or something, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, which is a lot for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I busted my knee. I mean, I was also like on the boat all day coaching.
Yeah.
And then I'd get to ride at the end of the day. And
Tight. Okay, let's run through.
Eating fast food more often than not, having like a few extra cookies,
I mean, it's freedom. You got some freedom now. You're not in the household. You're not getting fed. So, okay, let's run through blowing your knee out because this sounds like a good time to kind of roll right into that.
Uh-huh.
So, what happened?
At the time, I was working on toe nines. So, Toe 9 back then the wakes weren't the size that they are now, so you needed to have everything dialed in. And yeah, it wasn't easy. It was obviously like if you're doing a 9 in your run on the Pro Tour in that era, like people know and they're scared and they don't want to mess up their run. I obviously want to progress. I've seen everyone do it. And I was like, toe 7s are good. I want to learn my toe 9. Couple tries into it, busted my knee. The typical land, like kind of like on your hip and on your butt, like you're under rotating and you're off axis. So you're kind of like squatted. I'm regular, so I'm squatted on my left side coming down, and then my right leg kind of gets slapped. And that's when you get the internal rotation.
And what was it? What was the diagnosis there?
ACL.
ACL? Just ACL?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, that was my second knee. We breezed over the first knee.
I didn't know about the first
I was
one.
16 the first knee, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, first my right knee, right then and there, like I knew I hurt my knee, but then I think I was riding with Doyle, actually. He pulled me and he was going to ride after, so we go back to shore, covered in ice, get back in the boat, and I pull him for a set. And then waited a couple days to hopefully the swelling goes down because my knee felt somewhat stable. And, you know, I had a few people look at it, obviously Canadian abroad, like, you know, I don't want to have to spend too much money to get it checked out and this and that. And then eventually got it checked out properly, and ACL was done.
Okay.
ACL said bye-bye.
You got both knees out of the way early, though.
Yeah.
You knocked him out right away.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
First one was a half cab roll on the kicker at the cable park at home.
Okay.
It was in a contest. And big half cab roll off the first flat kicker, and then on the way back, there was a little wedge kicker at the back. I still hit the kicker. I did a whirly bird, but by then, like, I wanted, like, shoot me. Like, I was in so much pain. It was so terrible.
So that one was painful.
But I was in contest under pressure. Like, you got to prove it. Like, let's go. You're going hard.
You got to put down a whirly bird. I mean.
Oh, my God. Yeah, the whirly bird. Of course.
Okay, so bust your knee. You eventually go to the doctor, obviously. What's that look like? You got to get surgery, and then.
So my first knee when I was 17. The doctor said, so it looks like you're young and your body is stable enough. I'm going to prescribe you a knee brace, and I hope I never get to see you again. Great. Got a knee brace, flew out to Canadian Nationals, finished the season. Cool. 2 years later, I come back, I hurt my other knee. So this one is like, I mean, it's stable enough, you can finish the season, but we should get surgery on that.
And what's the surgery? Because there's two different kinds of knee repairs,
So
right?
I didn't get surgery on my left knee still. So I still wear a knee brace when I wakeboard and when I play hockey and when I snowboard. That's it. And on my right hand, on my right knee, they did patella tendon.
Okay. And did that? What's your recovery time for that right knee?
6 months.
Okay. And where do you go, or what do you do at this point? Do you stay down at the projects working there, or do you go back to Canada?
So that happened. My second knee, it was like spring. So then I finished the season. I finished the season at home. Still went to Worlds, but I rode in men's one because I wasn't pro. I didn't make it pro. Actually, that's the Worlds in Texas that Raph won boys, and then we went back to the projects for the Amassault.
Yes.
And after that, I got my knee surgery.
Okay. It was
So
right after that.
yeah, so it was in the fall. I got knee surgery at home, and then I started working at the board shop nearby called Surf 66, and I would just do my physio all day, every day, super focused. That was it.
And plan was to go back down to projects when you're all healed up?
Yep.
Okay. And so you go back down to the projects again. Is that late winter, early spring, probably?
That year I went back in February.
Okay. So winter. What was park riding like back then at the projects specifically?
Man, the projects had the best rail park in the world. Like back then, if you were a rail rider, you rode rails behind the jet ski more than at the cable park. And that was a complete different form or discipline almost. You know, rail riding behind the boat or the jet ski is closer to winching than cable riding, I would say.
Yeah.
Because the pole and it, like, you got to attack it. It doesn't come at you, if that makes sense. Like, at the cable park, it's pulling you. Like, the features are so big, they're coming at you. You have time to see them. When you're behind the jet ski, like, you have to edge out. You have to attack them. You have to get onto them.
Okay. What did your dad think of rails back then? At first, I guess.
My dad wasn't a big fan of like the alternative to a certain degree. So like I remember when I skateboarded, I love skateboarding. He's like, kickflip. You can't even do a kickflip. Like you'll land 1 in 100. Like show me someone who can do a kickflip every time, then I'll respect it. And I was like, okay. Same things with rails. Eventually he was like, so what's the show about? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's a stunt in the middle of the run, but like when you don't know the intricacies of what's actually being accomplished or done on the rails, like if you don't know the lingo, board slide back clip, like this and that, like if you haven't lifted, then it's a little harder to, I guess, respect it. So it kind of broke the flow of the riding, and obviously there's injuries, and he also hated them because I broke my leg on a rail quite early on. So he was like, rails suck, man. Stay off of them.
Fair enough.
He eventually came around.
I was going to say, he came around eventually. Though,
yeah,
right?
he came around big time.
Okay, so how long were you living and working at the projects for?
4 years?
It was 4 years.
Well, not consistent, like not through consistently.
4 seasons, though.
Yeah, so I would do like spring. So I would do like Feb or March till May or June. So I did that for 4 years. And then the last 2 years, I would also go in the fall. So like I'd come for like Surf Expo and I'd stay till October, November, maybe 1 year, December.
Okay. And what's your average day like at the projects?
Oh, it changes. There's a lot of things that can happen in one day at the project. So if you have campers, if you have a full week of campers, that's something different. If you have very little to no campers, it's something else. So if we have campers, obviously it's wake up at 7:30, kick down the door, wake everyone up, get the cereal out, everyone toast and whatnot. Everybody makes themselves breakfast, fill up the boat with gas, make sure the other coach is ready to go, and then before 8:30 you're on the water, and then like 12:30 you're back home for lunch. So in that morning you have to get everyone 2 sets. So you gotta get them.
Yeah,
you gotta fast. Yeah.
Okay.
And then lunch, and then afternoon is another set and a rail set
for the kids.
Yeah. The first few years we'd do 3 boat set, 1 rail set, and then you could trade a boat set for a rail set. And then like in the afternoon with the second coach, you could kind of alternate if you got more people in the park, less on the boat. But then lunchtime, you'd also get drop-ins. So there was an era where we had 3 Koreans that would come for boat sets and or rail sets during lunchtime. So like get off the boat, smash a quick sandwich, and then get back on the boat or on the jet ski and then come back for the afternoon. And then at the end of all that, then I get to ride.
Hectic. I was going to say, when do you get to ride? At night?
At the end
afternoon?
of the day.
Okay.
Either before the day starts or at the end of the day or lunch break if no one shows it. And then on weekends, Saturday, I would get more often than not woken up at the trailer door. Hey, Ollie, we want to go ride rails. And you know what? Some of my favorite moments and sometimes my least favorite moments was Daniel Powers, if you know who that is.
Yeah.
And his father, Jim Powers. They would come all the time, and they'd take boat sets and they'd take rail sets, and then Daniel could just ride forever. So I'd get woken up. Hey, Ollie, we're here. Let's go ride. Okay, cool. This one time, we came short of gas twice in the same session because he just kept riding. It was amazing. I've seen that kid progress so much. It was amazing.
I loved watching Daniel Powers ride way back when. Okay, so let's talk. I mean, at any point here, are you getting any sponsors? Are you getting any attention from board companies, clothing companies, anything like that?
So at that stage, so like I got my first like sponsorship, right? So I would get like a board float from the Canadian distributor through the local Nautique dealer who was put it on supporting Jeff Goslin. Shout out Jeff Goslin for putting on a tour. So we'd go do lessons and coach people in all the different corners of the province. And then, there were a few events that were obviously part of his, I guess, tour. So like I was on his boat all summer. I was traveling with him all summer. He would coach me and feed me and lodge me. Like I'm like 15, 16, 17 at that age, at that era. And he would coach me, and that's it. I didn't get paid, but he would like sponsor me.
Yeah.
I'd work all summer, but he'd coach me all summer. So it was like it was a perfect exchange.
So what boards were you getting?
I was getting Hyperlite. I was riding the Belmont.
Okay.
That was my favorite. That was the first shape that I rode. I was like, I love this thing. It was the Sean Murray Belmont, where you could have 3 fins, so you could have 0.8s on the outside, and you could have like a 1 inch in the middle. So I would ride just the little fins on the outside. That was like, you remember All or Nothing?
Yeah.
So like that era, that board shape that he was riding.
You were digging that.
Oh yeah, I love that thing.
Okay. Any other brands or sponsors at this point in the projects, I guess, in those years?
By the time I got to the projects, I was on Hyperlight Canada. I was riding Split clothing. So Guillaume Paré, shout out Guillaume Paré. He was one of my mentors, like Quebec wakeboarder. He actually had a scholarship in water skiing in Louisiana. Then came back and he was like working and growing the sport in wakeboarding, doing lessons, this and that. So he got me hooked up with Split. He actually was SBC wakeboard editor at the time. So he organized Wake Stock and ran the magazine for 2 years, which was epic. So Split, Hyperlight, and then, like Jeff would flow me whatever gear was flowed his way from supporting his X Tour, or what was it called at the end? I forget. Anyhow, so I didn't really have like much support other than Hyperlight and Split. And then eventually I got on with Dragon through the same deal, through the same distributor. And then by the time I got to the projects, I think I was getting on Excel. So Excel was probably my first paycheck.
Okay.
Excel wetsuits,
Yeah.
if you remember them. Like it's like a triangle Ninja Star looking logo.
Yeah.
They had like the vest, you had the neck zip like a surf wetsuit, but like you pull it through and then you zip here. Super thin. It was nice.
So what's that paycheck looking like? All the other brands just gear.
Yeah, just
Okay.
gear. I think it was like $200.
It's a lot of Taco Bell trips.
Yeah, decent amount of Taco Bell trips.
I mean, back then, yeah, that's you go.
Yeah. Well, 200 Canadian. So like I know for you guys, like that's a lot less. That's like Bach and Jay.
That's a couple loonies in the toonie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, loonies and toonies, eh?
Okay, so besides Doyle, who else are you riding with back then at the projects?
Oh, Rob Jakes.
Yeah.
I was trying to ride with Rob Jakes as much as possible. He, like, you posted this underdog thing. Like, I could have had an underdog list for days. Rob Jakes was the man. Like, I don't think he ever got the recognition he deserved. But, yeah, shout out to Rob Jakes. He was a machine. He was so cool, best style, rode so well, could do it all the grabs, every trick, switch regular. He was a beast. I rode with him a lot.
Okay. There's a water skier named Regina Jakes. Are they related at all?
No.
Okay.
So I actually lived with her sister, Renee Jakes. She worked at the project.
A lot of Jakes going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so I would ride with Pat would pull me when he had time, which was not as often as I wish it would have been. But like obviously now I understand all the responsibilities that he had. I would ride with Rob. I would ride with Renee. I would ride with Rob. And Lidberg would come over and ride every once in a while. Henshaw would come over and ride every once in a while. So like the best part of about the projects was the rail park. So all the pros would come and ride at the rail park.
Yeah.
So like that was a lot of my first interactions with the top pros, and I was like such a wake nerd. Like I still am, but like I was so geeked out. Like every time I was like, man, I can't believe Keith Lyman came and rode today, and you remembered my name. Yes,
Made it.
Oh man, you're just making me remember. There was the toe jam.
Yep.
One of the years, especially it was the year that BT took every discipline. So it was on the boat. I drove the boat for the boat aspect of the contest. And then I was too nervous to drive the jet ski for the rail park. And then there was the winch part. But I remember very vividly, it was like BT did a board slide big spin on the hubble edge. I can't remember if it was switch or regular. And Ratty did a backflip on the handrail in the middle. And it was like people were voting. And it was like one or the other. And BT ended up taking it. And I was like, man, that is so crazy. And then Rathy, we all went out to get some food. And Rathy had an old car. I forget what car it was. And he's like, you want to jump in? I was like, yeah, man. Hell yeah. I'd met Rathy like once or twice before at Canadian Nationals before.
Yeah.
And like even him, like the first time I saw him was at a Canadian Nationals water ski in Winnipeg.
Okay.
And I was such a big fan already because I knew he was like the chosen one for water skiing.
For water skiing?
Yeah. Rathy was going to say water skiing, and then he turned wakeboarder.
He was going to say water skiing.
Absolutely destroyed wakeboarding for a long time.
He sure did. Absolutely. Glad he made the switch over to the good side. Okay, let's kind of jump back before talking about Wakelab. I want to talk about the
Wakelab.
the PWT. So you had that first year T80. That was it. Next year, do you enter in on the PWT again?
Yep. And that year, I actually qualified.
Okay. Is there anything that you attribute your success to that year? Did you refrain from any activities for a long time?
Oh, I think I know what you're trying to say. I mean, that was an ongoing thing. That was not just like that one year. That was like a mindset. You know, every little ounce of me was focused on like making it. There was nothing going to get in my way, even like self-satisfaction.
So that was huge in making the PWT. Every single thing was taken into account.
It could have been. It could have not been.
Well,
what it was really good banter for all the boys to haggle me every freaking time.
Well, dude, if you're doing stuff like that, you don't make that public information. You don't make that public
Oh,
knowledge.
shit, man. Like, you're living with your best friends. You're traveling with your best friends. Like, eventually, like, something gets out.
That's a good point.
Everyone takes a 20-minute shower, but you take a 3-minute shower. Like, what did you not do in there, buddy?
Okay, so PWT, you just said you qualified. Run us through that season, I guess.
Yeah, so that year I qualified on tour. So I think you had 2 chances to make it at that one. So I think they tallied the score from the second stop, which was always Fort Worth on that private lake there, which was awesome. I forget exactly how that season went, but I do know that I finished 17th overall, and it was the top 16 were protected to be pre-qualified for the next season. And Derek Grassman got 16th, and all season we're like chasing each other, and we're on the bubble, and he edged me out. Like, we're in the same heat. He barely edged me out at the last stop. It was Portland. Yeah, I was bummed. And now, like, I work with Grassman. I talk to him almost every week. So it's cool. But yeah, that was such a big moment for me. Like, making it, like, realizing that I made it, like, I accomplished my dream. I'm, like, by definition, you're pro when you get paid. But, like, I qualified on the pro wakeboard tour. I am part of the elite. Like, that was such a big accomplishment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're standing shoulder to shoulder with all the guys. You're in the
Well,
mix.
I don't know, maybe, like, waist to shoulder, depending on who's next to me.
I wasn't going to say it, man.
Well, shit, I mean, you don't think I've ever noticed that I'm shorter than most?
Hey, I saved the extra small shirts for you, man.
Come on, guys, buy some small shirts for your girlfriends. They need small.
Or your kids, yeah. Make it little grommets. What's your contest run looking like? I mean, do you remember what is in your past then?
So the cool thing about that era was, like, most guys could do all the same tricks. It was mostly who was going to be able to put it together in the conditions, in the pressure, and obviously navigate the rail course. But, like, all the mobs were in play. So, like, Chromo, Moby Dick, KGB, Pete Rose, T2B, Whirly. Some guys were doing, like, the toe roll the blind or the G-spot. Some guys were doing back mobs. Like, a few guys were doing, like, Whirly 5s and Crow 5s. And then, obviously, there was 7s, toe 7, heel 7, back 7. And then a few guys were doing, like, toe 9s, Crow 5s. Then, you know, there were, like, some few guys that could do, like, Moby Dick 5, or, like, obviously they were front mobs or front mob 5s. Like, there were a few tricks that, like, would stand out, and, like, when those would happen, like, the whole crowd, which there was a crowd, would go, oh, you know? So there was, the field was much tighter, but at the end of the day, the best would always win.
Yeah.
From all of the different factors, from, like, dealing with the pressure, reading the course, like, navigating the rails. Like, the rails, it's not easy, and I wish they would bring back rails on tour. It was such a good show, and as a rider, like, obviously, like, I love rails just as much as I love riding the boat, but, like, it shows such a strength of adaptability to be able to show up and, like, look at the course and be like, okay, I'm switching up my run because I don't have enough time to fit these 2 tricks between the 2 rails.
Yeah.
So I'm going to knock these 2 tricks real quick. So every stop, every round, you had to adjust something. It wasn't like you do the same 4 tricks at home and you show up and you have to do them now. And then, like, there might be a section where there's some rollers coming back. It might be shallow here, but, like, all those things are still in play, except that you also have rails to navigate. But then if you like don't tee up your board slide or your 270 in properly and you swivel, you break off your metal fin. So like you got only yourself to blame. If you take too much time to edge in and edge out, or like you had so much more to be in control of. And like obviously it was sketchier. Like I've seen some really bad calls, like Scarecrow land lean locked and you're just lean locked into the transfer box. Like Travis had to slow down on the boat and he would get freaking furious. I can only imagine. Imagine someone's about to like ride themselves to death and like you're the one driving the boat and you didn't slow them down. Like that's so much pressure.
It's contest pass though.
It was so gnarly. It was so sick.
So bring back rails.
Oh yeah, bring back rails. I mean, I understand the whole reason why, like all of that. Like I was part of those talks and conversations and group meetings and all that.
What's the reason why?
Well, I mean, there's multiple reasons. There's the reason that they were starting to have like some cable events that were supported by boat brands. That was one. Another one was like,
that's not a good reason, but
less dollar support. Then there's also, there's less dollar support, like all the overhead of traveling 2-3 trailers of features on the road. And then like, obviously there are billboards, but then if there's no brands to want to have their posters on the billboards, like the big rails around and like all the overhead, like there's a lot of reasons why. And then some of the top riders were like, we don't want them. Like we're boat riders, you know?
Okay.
Like I vividly was like all for rails. Obviously, like I think better than the average guy on the rails in that era.
Yeah.
Well, the guys that were like, well, I mean, we're going to do what, like a board slide and a 50-50 across.
Yeah, that's
this
what Rusty.
thing?
Rusty
like,
was like, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, of course. Like, and I'm like, well, that's your choice. Like, I was riding molded fins. I was doing nose press and combos and trying to do different things. And like, that was my favorite part. Like, I maybe wouldn't like outbeat the guy on the wake. I could maybe match him, but then I would outride him on the rails. That was my strategy.
Yeah.
And like, I think that shows a lot more diversity in your riding. Like, I think I realized that I was never going to be the best at everything, but I think I could be better than average at everything. And that was kind of my goal. And like having the rails part of the whole thing, which I grew up watching the rails. I was like, they're never going away. This is it. Like I'm going all in. I'm doing everything and I'm never going to be number one at all of them, but I will damn compete at every single one of them if I can.
Okay. So the boys are not about it anymore. I mean,
well, yeah.
I guess I don't
like
know when you were involved
there were more cable events. So it was like, well, listen, like if you want to ride cable, if you want to ride rails, like go ride cable. If you want to ride boat, like ride the boat. Like having both doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then like they changed like the transfer box, and then they changed it again. It was a unit 1 that was like way too small for the speed of the boat, and like you're edging into it. And then like by that time, like it made sense to remove them because like it wasn't doing any justice to rail riding having those features in the run.
Okay. Interesting. I think a rail would be, like you said, though, they have to be very, very big because you're going fast. And, I mean, you're from far away. I think the rails have to be huge. I think it would be awesome to bring at least one rail back, though.
I mean, there was a time where they had the transfer box. They had a big A-frame that you could gap and make tranny. They had a flat bar. So you'd have 3 rails in both passes. So you could do 4 boat tricks and 3 rails in each pass. Or you could do, like, 1 less rail and 1 more boat or wake hit. And then that was right around the time when, I forget who you were talking about this with, Tony. It went from like the one format to like, it was like, well, it was like airs. You had to do 1 air, and like the goal was to do a big backside 180 to the flats or something.
Yeah.
Like your flat, your air trick had to be sent, or it was super technical. Spins, tech, so like your mobs and your inverts, and then your spins, and then rails, and then overall. So like rails was like the 3rd biggest category. Right, so like tech was biggest, and I remember like sitting at the round table and like everyone was like, "Well, is it tech that is worth more? Or is it rails?" And obviously like Phil's like tech, and then like Danny's like spins, and then the next guy's like whatever I'm best at is I want that, like that's gonna help me, and like that's normal. Like we're all out there trying to make a living and like to be the best that we can be, and like if the system can like slightly be in our favor, like the better it is, right? Like, but at the end of the day, the best is going to win. Doesn't matter what the format is, the best will adapt. And that was my favorite part of like the whole competitive thing and like going from boat to cable to cable to boat. And like events where, like the rail events, especially where you show up and everybody gets the same amount of practice, who adapts the quickest, that was my favorite.
Okay.
I thought that showcased like who really is the best. Like we all have the same amount of tries, we all have the same amount of practice. Like it's fair game. It's even for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, everything's the same for everybody, which is, a cool thing about contests. Speaking of contests, USA versus Canada versus Australia. If you could make the best team, what country would win?
Ooh. I mean, right now.
So
hold on. What are the parameters? Okay, so like, is it all time? Like, can we take all the Canadians, all the Americans, all the Aussies in the history of the sport? Is it just boat? Is it cable? Is it like you get one boat guy, one cable guy, one like? There's so many different ways.
I say choose your own adventure. I was thinking that it would be just anybody, dead or alive, riding or not riding. You take them at their best.
How many riders do you get? I mean,
10,
if you
10,
take 3 riders or if you take 10 riders, dictates a big change.
3.
Okay, if we take 3, that's going to be a heck of a competition. So, like, Raph, Rusty, Rathy, you could change and put, like, a Derry in there. You can put a me in there. You can put a Liam Brearley in there. You can, like, there's so many good riders that have come out of every single country. Take Aussie, like, what's the format? Like, you want like Chriso and Mitch and like
it's true.
You know, like who do you want? Like who do you want? Like do you want like Harley and Corey and Rappa? Like America, like you want like what do you want?
All right, I'll rephrase the question because I think there's a lot of different avenues you go with that question. But
like
you
want the Stuckies and Gunther? Like is it cable? Is it like is it boat? Is it overall? Is it winch spots? Like what are we talking here?
I think America would win. But what country has produced the most talent, you think? No disciplines, just pure wakeboard talent. It could be park, winch, boat, air tricks.
I mean, I think obviously America. If we're looking at volume, America. If we're looking at proportional.
Per capita, I would say.
Per capita, maybe Australia.
You think?
Man.
They all three have very strong
And there's a lot of
cases.
really strong talent that have not been able to make it over the pond and come onto the American scene. Like, that was one part that was really hard as a Canadian or as a French Canadian, had to break through my province and my provincial scene to make it on our national scene, to then have to break in again here and I'm as an amateur and then pro and then like to build up. So like you come from a different country. You move to America. So like nobody knows you. You have to like, you really have to stand out for a brand to be like, oh, we're going to support someone that we haven't been exposed to their family and their upbringing, and they have no relationship with a local boat dealer or board shop for the last 5 years. Like it's a different experience.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of talent from all over the world, and that was my favorite part from traveling to Europe and Asia and Australia, was to see all the best riders that nobody knew about.
Yeah. Those underdogs.
There's so many of them.
So many.
And it's so awesome when like you spot them. And then, like, 3 years later, they start coming through, and you're like, oh, yeah, here it goes.
I remember you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a good time to talk about most underrated riders. I mean, you mentioned a couple. You got any on the tip of your tongue?
Oh, there's more. I mean, I actually thought about it this week because I knew it was coming. Like, hold on, let me rectify. So, underrated or underappreciated or undersupported, because that is, like... There's a big difference.
Let's go undersupported. I think that's a really interesting
one.
one.
Biggest one to me is Darius Nebel. Shout out Darius Nebel. He's a fucking machine. Like, I don't know very many people who can keep up with him with everything that he can do.
Yeah.
And has been able to maintain and, like, keep improving over the years. Like, he's been around for a long time. I've known Darius since he's, like, 12. And he's been a sick shredder.
And he's been getting better. It seems.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, he still is getting better.
Watch his part in the most recent Outhouse for those who haven't. It's the opening part, and
I haven't watched Coalition 10 yet. Is he? I'm sure he's got some banger in there. Of course.
Yeah. But I would say that. I mean, obviously all the coalitions, but the part he has in the Outhouse. Have you seen that? His opening part in the most recent. I think it's
I love the one where he's like landing in the bleachers.
Yeah, I love his opening scene where he does like wake to wake trick and then hits a dock and then cuts back. It's another wake to wake trick.
Well, that's what boat riding contests with rails used to encapsulate.
Yeah.
Was that flow of like, just like snowboard slope style. What is the ultimate, board rider, snowboard, all terrain. It's slopestyle.
Yeah.
It's the same. It
Bring
should
back
be
the
the same
flow.
behind. It should be the same on the water.
I like it. So Derry's a big one. I agree
Oh,
with that.
Derry's
Undersupported.
underappreciated. Like, she probably takes the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Underrated. I mean, there's so many from different generations. Like, I think the post I made on the Grand Matters page was a lot of like older guys, people more like my generation. There's a lot fresh blood out there that's also not getting what they could be or should be. But I mean, what is it? Is it a paycheck? Is it recognition from like being in the magazines that are non-existent? Is it like getting reposted by like a bigger Instagram platform, or like what is the recognition nowadays? And that's a different question that I can throw
It's
your
a
way.
whole nother can of worms. Yeah, maybe throw that one my way in a little bit. I got a Patreon question from Garrett Cortez. So yeah, those of you guys want to join the Patreon, you can. There's 2 tiers on there. The gold tier allows you to see who the guests are early, and you can ask them a question, and I'll go ahead and ask it.
I'm a Patreon. You guys should do it.
He is, yeah.
Hey, even with the Canadian exchange, I did it.
Yeah, that's very true. I see those Canadian loonies and toonies come in, and I always get a little smile. Garrett's wondering, could you right now go and pound 9 White Castle burgers and then spin at 900?
I like to think that I could, but the
It's a
truth
big
is,
difference
but the truth is, like I'm not down to try. I don't think I can do it. Like first of all, I think they were Crystal mini burgers. I think it was Crystal's burgers.
Crystal with a K.
Have you been there? Have you
Crystal
seen?
with a K.
Yeah, Crystal with a K. So they're the ones that make the mini burgers.
Well, White Castle makes mini burgers too.
Really?
Yeah.
I was always scared of the White Castle.
Why?
Until I saw that one movie with Harold and Kumar, and then
Yeah.
I thought like it was funny. But like, coming from Canada, coming here in Orlando and seeing all these new fast food joints that look kind of slimy and sketchy, I was not about it.
Except for Taco Bell.
I mean, yeah, Taco Bell is it wasn't better, but like
Could you smash the 9 burgers though?
yeah, I think I could do it.
And then
I might puke, except for that time I didn't puke. And I did my 9 off the wake. They all tried on the double up, Phil and Rusty. Ha! Beat you guys, one of the rare times.
I didn't know they were going off dub and you were going off the just straight wake to wake.
We had the choice.
And you took the wake to wake.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I if I wanted to make sure I had it, I had to do it off the wake. On the dub, like it was
Hit or miss.
after 9 burgers, like I didn't need the extra boot.
Okay. I'll allow you to bump it down to a toe 5 if you make up for it in different burgers. Could you do it then? So
yeah, I can do a toe 5, yeah, for sure.
14 burgers, toe 5.
Oh, yeah, no. No chance.
I don't know if
Dude,
the math's right on
Dude,
that.
look
but
at me.
I don't know, man. Mind over matter with stuff like that. You maybe get it done. Would you consider yourself more of a naturally talented wakeboarder or a hardworking, work hard to get the tricks wakeboarder?
I think a natural talented wakeboarder doesn't exist. I think everyone has to put effort, whether it came from like the hours you put on the board behind the boat or on the cable, or is it because you water skied? Is it because you were into gymnastics? Is it because you were a 6 skateboarder and you translated your riding onto the water hitting rails? Like anyone who's gone anywhere has put the time to get there. The recognition that you get earlier or later is not up to you necessarily, but like to get to a certain level, you have to put the time in.
So you don't believe in talent?
I mean, yes, but like it is a much smaller proportion.
It's
of
not as
the
big as
end
people
result.
make it out to be. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like I've heard over and over again, like Raph's so talented. Raph's so talented. Yeah, dude. We would jump on the trampoline for hours, for years, and then we'd like every time we could, we'd ride. Like a lot of time goes into it, and like it's unaccounted for. And no one really knows how much people have put work in the different aspects. And like obviously it comes with opportunity, but like some people can just like turn it on and understand it better sooner, maybe. Like sure, I believe in like natural talents, but you can't get there with just that. And that's not enough.
Okay.
I mean, if we're talking pro level, like I don't know how to like interpret the end question, but like natural talent only takes you so far.
All right. I agree with that. It's interesting. So would you say that you were more of a did you ever feel like on a wakeboard things came easy to you? I guess maybe that's a better way to put the question.
At a younger age, yeah. As a teenager, I think like it felt very natural I was obsessed with snowboarding and skateboarding, and I was on the trampoline. I grew up water skiing a lot and watching videos. Like my brain had already absorbed like everything.
Yeah.
And then I just needed to keep doing it to figure it out. And I loved it. So it was so easy. I didn't want to go play video games. I wanted to go jump on the trampoline. After watching, I remember this is a memory. Trevor Hansen did a Crow 5 on the Pro Tour, on his rookie tour on the Pro Tour. And I went out on the trampoline and tried to learn it. And it took me a couple crashes. I think I bled from my nose. I got a nosebleed from like blending and scrubbing my face, but I eventually learned it. But like, that was that was my generation. Like there was no figuring anything out other than trying it. Like you could see it on the TV or in the magazine. Like that was it.
Yeah. No YouTube video to go and walk you through step by step.
Like hundreds and hundreds of videos and clips on social media and this and that. Like that didn't exist.
Yeah.
You had to seek out what you wanted.
Crow 5 or Toe 9? What do you prefer? And is there a difference?
Like if I had like what's easiest or what I prefer doing?
Yeah, what's easiest? Because Murray still does Crow 5s like it's nothing.
I mean, they are similar in timing and approach.
And rotation.
To me, a Toe 9 was easier.
Really?
As in like, yeah, I just think Toe 9 to me, I would prefer doing a Toe 9 than a Crow 5.
Okay.
I learned Toe 9 before, but it took me more time to learn Crow 5 than Toe 9. No, that's not true. It took me more time for the Toe 9.
But once you got it.
But once I got it, the Toe 9 was on. Then like Crow 5, like I went through a roller coaster, and then like the wakes were small, grab, no grab, learn how to grab it again, and then your timing's off, and then like you fall in a contest, and like your mind is just like gone down the drain. Yeah.
Okay. Let's bring it back to kind of not the early days, but we're getting into the kind of the height of your career with Wakelab. So I don't remember. 2008 was the first Wakelab, right?
Yeah.
What's it like to be in that competition? Because that's right in Orlando, big names. That's a huge deal, right? That first Wakelab. What's it like to kind of compete with all those guys? Obviously, you'd been on the Pro Tour, but kind of seemed like it was maybe a little bit more detached back then.
Okay, I will walk you through my memory of what that was like. So I was working at the projects. This is my third year at the projects, I believe. I'm working there. This is fall, so we're all there for Surf Expo. My buddy Yan Thibault, sick rail rider, underappreciated, another one, Yan Thibault, crazy. So Pat and the team is working relentlessly on building these steel cubes that they are going to assemble and stack, and the bottom one is foam injected so that it floats. So like the massive quarter pipe, like I think it was like 4 big steel frames that were stacked on top of each other. So there's a production going. So they'd wake us up at night so we could help them load the cubes on. So like I was a small part of creating the park itself because I lived at the projects, and Pat was running that with the team, and like obviously he was running the show for Ceci Tech, and like that was just coming in. So that was one part of it. And then I remember Pat telling me he fell asleep assembling some of the stuff because he'd been working like 24 hours a day, 3 days in a row, and it's like the night before the event, and like he's underwater scuba putting stuff in underwater, and he fell asleep and he woke up underwater. Anyhow, so they're late in setting it up. So practice is cut short. They have a riders meeting beforehand, and Dishman, shout out Sean Dishman, goes, hey, so what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to split pot? And you all get the same amount of practice? It's like, forget what it was, but if I remember right, it was like everybody gets $1,000 and the winner gets $5,000. And everyone's like, yeah. And I've always been about the gang. Like, you guys want to split? Like, we all get some. Great. And the winner gets more. Like, at the end of the day, like, the dollars are nice, but it's the recognition. It's you won that title, you know? Anyhow, we go do practice, and it was awesome. Like, when I was saying earlier, like, you ride the setup for the first time, you have to adapt, and then you watch the other guys figure out their lines, and, like, this guy makes it. This guy didn't cut hard enough. He came off early. This and that. So, like, all of those little things. And it's Surf Expo weekend, downtown Orlando, Lake Eola. There's a big crowd. It was epic. Pat Moore was one of the judges, which I thought was...
Because you had a snowboarder, a skater, and a wakeboarder, right?
Yeah, that fired me up.
That's awesome.
That fired me up. That there was a snowboarder there that I, like, that would get what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
That fired me up.
A little bit of confidence almost going into the contest. Like, okay, there's a guy on the judging panel that's going to understand maybe a little bit more than some of these wakeboard guys.
I mean, yes, no, maybe, but at the end of the day, like, it was just nice to have a different perspective in a sport, like two sports that we idolize, that we look up to as wakeboarders. Like, those are the ultimate, right? Like surfing, skating, snowboarding, right? And then the fact that it was Surf Expo, so I had some friends, some people from the industry that were from where I'm from. And then we actually had two other riders from Quebec, and unfortunately, Raph didn't get to ride in that one. But Yen Thibault and Zdia Godbout, shout out to Zdia Godbout. If anybody knows who that is, he was a sick rider too. But yeah, that event was sick. I was so proud of myself by putting together what I did. And then at the end of the day, like, you have no idea how it's gonna turn out.
So what was the setup like?
Okay, if I remember right, the first cable on the right-hand side you left, you had like a bank-to-bank like this, or you could, on the way back, just go like wedge to down rail. And on the right, you had like the big quarter pipe. On the other side, I forget exactly what it was. You had a pool. Oh, it was the pool with a down rail. There was a flat down bar, and there was a round bar on the right, and then there was like the Fox Gap, if you remember that from the project.
Yeah,
it was
I'll go
just like an up
in.
and down. So it was like a box to box with like a gap, a negative gap in the middle. I forget if there was another feature on the left hand cable. But I mean, the coolest part is like everyone's trying different stuff that no one has really gotten to try before, like other than like the typical tricks of like this feature and that feature, the different lines. What line is worth more, like who's doing what. Like, you could tell that Parks was going to pick the craziest line and commit. And he did. Like, I forget, he made this crazy gap, snapped his board. It was epic.
How'd you do?
I did good. I did what I wanted to do, and somehow I ended up with the win.
Was that your first big win?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first pro win.
And you got 5 Gs or 6 Gs? 5 Gs?
5 Gs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody else got a G.
Yeah. So it wasn't a typical 1, 2, 3 podium. It was best overall, best line, and best trick, and they had different names for each. So like it was JD and Rathy and I. And I forget exactly who did what. I think JD got best trick and Rathy got best line.
Yeah.
And
I think you're correct on that. I'll put the video
overall
in of that. But I think
because JD on the bank to bank, he went back because he's goofy. So you went back lip up, front 3 to switch back lip on the other bank. And I mean, this is funny because you're interviewing me, but it could have been on a certain Instagram post. That being said, like, this is a long time ago, and this is also in a contest.
We're in the exploratory phases of rail riding still for wakeboarding.
I think we might still be. There's a lot that might still come. Who knows?
I agree. I just mean in terms of like proper teed up.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to rewatch my run. I'm sure half of my stuff was also scissored up.
So okay, so you get a dub. This is obviously a big stepping stone in your career, a big point. How is Raph doing competitive wise up until now?
I think he's struggling. Because he's got everything that he needs to deliver the goods, but when it comes in the event and the pressure in the moment, he more often than not has a shortcoming, whether it's like a missed trick or missed grab, or like, he does well in one round, the next round he falls apart, whatever it was. I think there was a lot of pressure. I think there was also like mind games to a certain degree, like the banter on the dock, the who you're competing against, and that's still like in not video contest, but like in real life, in person contest. Like when you're on the dock and like you're in a heat or you're not with your homies because you might be new, like it's very easy to be intimidated.
Yeah.
And then like you don't want to talk to anyone, you get nervous, and someone comes up to you and they ask you something, and then you're like, what? And then like you're also like 14 years old, like it wasn't easy.
And if you haven't done well, you have no reason to, I mean, I don't want to say no reason to believe that you can do well, but it's like, well, I haven't done well. Do I belong here? Am I like...
Well, hold on. So he won boys worlds in the boys division. And like at that time, like that was a stacked final. There was like Jacob Valdez and Harley and Daniel Powers and like
Sovin had to be in there, right? Or...
Yeah, Bob, like they were all there, and like it was a difficult field. And then like coming into juniors, like it wasn't any easier. And then like you get more testosterone and like people are talking more, and like by that stage, like it's almost like the industry or the sponsors had selected a few guys already. So like this guy is pro for this brand, and this guy's getting paid, and this guy's like in the catalog for that brand, and like all those little things were like an edge that they had on you, because in the theory they were like closer to the finish line of making it than you were. So you always feel like
always playing catch up.
Yeah, you always feel like you're playing catch up and you have to prove more. And like it's funny because Raph and I both had this like thing that we tell each other, kind of like Rocky Balboa. Like you can't beat the champ by the bell. You actually have to beat them. You can't just like tie them and barely edge them out. You have to beat them to make your spot.
Speaking of motivational quotes, did you ever have, growing up, any motivational quotes on the wall? You remember any of them?
Yeah. When I lived at the projects, when I shared a room with Yan Tebow, I bought this big stack of blank posters, and I wrote a couple quotes that I put.
They were
up on
blank.
the wall. Well, they were blank posters, and I wrote my own quotes on them to motivate me and keep me motivated.
Big time players make big time plays. Pressure makes diamonds.
Sort of like that, maybe even more like
Withhold
cringy.
self-pleasure to see success.
No. I'm trying to remember.
I mean, were they quotes you made up, or were they...
I mean, they're quotes that I heard. Whether they were good or not, who knows, but they kept me motivated. And I think one was like, no borders, no boundaries. One was like, a man without a name is like a fire without a flame. Like,
that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, any source of motivation I could get. You know, I wanted it so bad.
Hey, it ended up working.
So bad.
And I need to put some motivational quotes up on these walls here. In reality, though, is it tough to see Raph kind of struggling in his early stages of his career wakeboarding?
Yeah. I mean, when we went on tour, like, I was 19, he was 13, 14, and we traveled just the two of us. Like, we don't know that many people on the scene. You know, we're not getting rental cars. We're just like landing, getting a taxi ride. I have my printed maps to make sure the taxi's not like
taking your money.
Yeah, exactly. And then like there's this one time where we missed our flight because it got delayed. We spent a night at the airport. We get on a flight, but we can't make it on this one because it's full. We get on the next one, get to the event. Raph missed his ride. Like it was just the two of us. We're doing our thing. We're trying so hard, and like, you know, we're trying to not only like make our spot as like individuals within the group, but like on the water, making it through the heats, making it worth our while. And he had all that he needed. Like he could do it all, but in those moments it was difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't easy. And like sometimes I'd do well and he didn't, and like I felt like he deserves to do better than me, because against the field, he's got much better odds to do well than me. And then more often than not in that era, like I would do better than he would in proportion. And like I was so proud of myself, and he was super supportive, but I felt so bad inside that he wasn't able to get his own at that stage.
I say let's talk Wake the Line. So this is 2009, right? First Wake the Line that you're in? That doesn't matter the year, but it's shortly thereafter.
Yeah, 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wake the Line. How's that work? You get invited to that?
That one I got invited to because I just won the wakelab the year before.
Yep. Okay. So you go over there and you bring Raph with you, correct?
So we were on Were we on a different trip? No, we came back for Wake the Line. I can't remember exactly the setup, but yes, we went there, and then Raph got invited from Pat.
It was a unique kind of situation with Raph, though, right?
Yeah.
In terms of how we got into the contest.
Yeah. Basically, there was like a rider missing, like a last minute, someone got injured, I think, or something like that. And then we all went to Langenfeld for like the season kickoff party, and then that's where they were gonna do the draw. But they also had like a local contest that day, and then like we all rode. It was like a practice day, and we're all in Europe for the first time, or at least for the most part. You know, most American or North American riders that are going there for the first time. And then Raph rode and absolutely killed it. Like there was a little contest, and I think he won, or like I don't know if whatever. But like I remember vividly remembering like, damn, like I know Raph is good, but then like seeing him ride amongst the best of the best with a lot of the European riders that I don't get to see or that I don't know, I was like, okay, like he's on. And then the next day and a half we have open practice at Wake the Line. So like that's my favorite part. It's just like you get to see everyone, and they make like 4 groups of, I don't know, 6 riders, 8 riders, something like that. And then each group has an hour to ride. So then you're just linking ropes, and then you go and you go and you go. And then obviously like I'm sitting there and I'm watching everyone. I want to see who's doing what tricks they're doing, what line they're doing. Like I love it. This is the best part. Like who's adapting the best, who's getting to, and then obviously the later group gets to see more of the action and like less attempts to figure out what they're trying to do. But then like Wake the Line, there's this new thing with like two tower parks. Like there's a quarter pipe. Nobody knows how to hit a quarter pipe. Snowboarders might, but you come in flat base, like it's a complete different thing. So that was fun. Yeah, that was such an experience. So like at that party, they make the 8 riders that are invited pick out of a bag, and then you pick out like somebody else's name, and they actually have the jersey. So I pick out a shirt that says Derome on it. And I'm like, someone messed up. Like, how could I pick my own name? And as I do this, I see the R dot. And I'm like, fuck. God damn it. Like, we spent our money. We flew here together hoping that, like, you know, and then, like, we go neck to neck first round. Like, could there be any worse scenario? And then there's no pressure for either of us. Like, nobody wants to send his brother home, A. B, like, he's got pressure. He's coming as the no-namer. Like, he already has a name in the industry, but on the rail riding side of things, in the European industry, nobody knows Raph Derome, or a few do. Granted, he had just come off a win at Fees and a win at another event. Oh, that's how he got his invite. He went to Fees, and he won. And, like, we did a little trip in France a few weeks before, the month before, and he won every contest he entered. We did 2 or 3 contests.
Okay.
Kicked everyone's ass. And that includes, like, a Lidberg in his prime and a Henshaw in his prime, and he was just an underdog that came in and kind of was like, wait, what? Anyhow, he got the invite. I pull him, and, yeah, the rest is history. First round off the bat.
I mean, what's it like? Obviously, it's kind of a bummer, I feel like, to pull your brother, because the idea was at least we could maybe make it a couple of rounds. It was this a head-to-head bracket-style contest?
Yeah, head-to-head.
Yeah, hopefully, at least you could make it a couple of rounds if
Best
you travel
3,
all this way.
head-to-head. Well, yeah, like, you know, we had done practice, and we both were riding really strong. We were both, like, I'm not someone that likes to brag or anything, but I felt like we both had a chance to podium.
Yeah.
Like, we, obviously, as the contest progressed, more and more lines and new tricks and crazier stuff were happening. But at the beginning, we were both looking very strong.
Yeah.
And, I just remembered, I was doing a hand plan in the quarter pipe.
Really?
Yeah. I was doing a hand plan in a quarter pipe, which gave me, like, a little upper in that section because, we can really do anything in there. Exactly.
Form of that.
So, like, I was doing something different. Nico was doing some different lines, and then there was this crazy transfer that Fetzi was doing. Daniel Fetz from Austria. He was doing this crazy transfer that looked so deadly. It was so dangerous. It was so
the setup's hectic. The setup is very fast.
It's a quick setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, though.
Yeah, it was super rad. And, like, to feel the the way that they presented the event and the stage that they presented it on was awesome. So it's obviously like an Olympic style pool. So you have like the 5-meter platform, 10-meter platform, pool for diving. Then you get into the second pool where they do like the actual swimming and the laps and stuff. And then there's like a swirl pool or kiddie pool at the back. So first pool, you know, you have like a transfer into the second pool, and then like the second gap, you had a little elevated pool. So you could like jump into it and do a rail out, or someone was like doing a big transfer all the way across. And then on the way back, same thing, little rail up or little rail down, then kicker. And then that year they had barrels, so you could tap the barrels. So that was fun. And like the crowd's there, and they have a cable cam with the live camera on a big screen. It
was legit. Very legit.
It's like live stream. Like my parents watched it live. Like they were ahead of the curve on so many different fronts.
Yeah.
It was super impressive. And the energy there, like it was epic.
So what's it like to lose to your brother that first round? Are you happy for him, or are you bummed? I mean, a lot of different emotions going on, I imagine.
I was bummed for a very short amount of time.
Okay.
Like I didn't allow myself to be bummed any longer, because I was like, I'm backing him. Whatever he needs, I'm here. Like, let's go. You do you. You get to the top if you can. It was so awesome.
Okay.
It was so rad to like live that. Like, obviously it sucked to lose, but it was.
You got over it very quickly.
Well, it's like I was in the passenger seat. Or like I was driving and he's in the passenger seat and he's getting it done. Like we were side by side doing it together.
Yeah.
You know, so like there was no lose if one of us won.
Good point.
That's how it felt.
So next year, well, first off, how does Raph do that first year?
He won. He ended up winning.
Got the dub.
Yeah. He was against Nico in finals. It was a final four, so it was Nico and Lindbergh and Henshaw, I think.
Sounds right.
Or Fetz was in finals because he made that crazy transfer every time when he needed to. I forget.
Okay.
But it was a heated battle.
Raph won.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that? It's got to be through the roof.
Yeah, I was ecstatic.
You got
probably just as much adrenaline as I would have had like taking it myself.
Yeah. Successful European trip for Raph that first time.
So stressful though. Like you have no control. Like you can't. You're just there and you're watching and you're feeling the stress that he's feeling.
But you can't do anything about it.
And like, you know, when you're in the act of competing yourself, like time slows down. Well, when like your brother is there and like you've spent so much time with them, like working on this, like it slows down for you too, because you know exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah.
You know exactly the process of like going through those motions.
Absolutely. So the next year, following year, same event, Wake the Line, just as awesome. You guys somehow draw each other's names.
That was not this following year.
It wasn't how many years
No,
after?
so the following year, Raph didn't come. I went on my own.
Okay.
And I got knocked out by Felix.
And
Felix
was yeah.
Yes, that was the first time I saw Felix, and I was like, who's this kid? Nico's best friend. He's riding a Brian board. Like, most people are starting to ride, like, flex boards and stuff like that. And I'm like, who's this guy? I'm not riding a flex board, but still. And then he was so good. He came in as an underdog. He always had, like, that different style to him. And I was like, who is this guy? And then we're doing practice. We're in the same practice group. And we keep matching each other's tricks. He's goofy and I'm regular, so we're both doing switch and regular, and we're both doing, like, I guess more modern for that era, like tech combos and press and tricks. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then, of course, I pick him, and I get knocked out first round. I was like, damn it. So the following year, then we come back, and both Raph and I are there. Raph and I are there. And
okay,
that's
I thought that
Raph's
was
comeback year from his elbow injury.
Gotcha, from winching, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so got knocked out by Felix, which it turned out to be an incredible rider in and of itself.
Well, he made finals that year too.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like, that was his breakthrough. At
Absolutely.
least from what I remember, like, the first time that I saw Felix breakthrough was there. Like,
I think
for the American market, I guess, like, Wake the
Yeah.
Line was so big that it had a big influence and impact in the North American market. So, like, it was in all the magazines, and there were videos on Alliance and all this stuff. So, like, that was the first time that I was like, Felix is a riot.
He put his name down. Okay, so 2 years after then, that initial one, you guys pull each other's names for the first round. But this one has an LCQ, right?
Yep.
Okay, so same thing happens though, right?
Yeah. Well, same concept, and it's LCQ, and basically, like, the way the LCQ works is you don't ride again. All the losers from the first bracket, they pit them up against each other and they compare their runs, and the best run makes it through.
I didn't know that.
So I rode really well against Raph, but obviously not enough to
Still wasn't
to
enough.
take him out. But like knowing going into it that I was riding against my brother, who I knew was probably going to be the hardest one to beat that weekend. And then the format, like I didn't go all out, guns blazing, trying to take him out. I just made sure I could get to the next round. But that year I Wake the Line, a couple guys were doing doubles, including myself. And on the last practice day, I wrecked my ankle on a double. So no, not that year. That's another year. There was 2 years? Damn. That's the 4th year. I did 4 Wake the Lines. So there's one. That's the other one that I hurt my ankle. Okay. That one with Raph.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one with Raph, yeah. So made it through the LCQ and was able to make it through 2 rounds to finally get back into finals and then ride against them again.
How'd it go that second time?
Much better. Didn't beat him.
But you guys did end up podiuming that event together, which is the first time you guys had done that, right? In a pro event.
Yeah, it was our first like international event or like pro event where we podiumed together.
Yeah.
So that was a big one.
It's got to be pretty badass to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I was saying, like I'm a huge wake fan, wake geek, right? So like I got a 6 years younger brother whom I shared a room with till I moved to the projects, right? So like you know how many times we talked about wakeboarding going to sleep? So many times. So like on our checklist, one of them was like, okay, obviously make it pro, get a cover, like video part, this, that, like win a contest, but like make a podium together. Like that's
a big one.
That was on there.
Okay. I think that was a good time to talk about a little bit more about Raph. Especially at this point, I've always wondered, did you ever feel any resentment towards him because he was so much younger when he started to get a lot better? So that was a big, moment in his career. He had a bunch of moments in his career, but was there ever a point where you were both competing and he was maybe getting more of the attention, bigger sponsors, anything like that, where you started to feel a little bit, I don't know, backseat to him? Is that, did you ever feel like that?
I mean, it's how could I say this? Like I've seen that coming a long time before we made it to that situation. Like I remember when we were younger at the end of the season was the time like to try a bunch of new tricks, because if we got hurt, we had all winter to recover. So like I remember one off season, like in 3 weeks, I think Raph learned like 10 tricks. I learned like 6. But like all of the tricks that we're going for all of the same tricks.
And he's 6 years younger than you.
And he's 6 years younger than me. So like that year we learned like switch curl mode, switch toe 7, like a bunch of like switch tricks and different stuff that we weren't doing already. And I think he did like switch tootsie and like we're just like on this like let's explore, let's do everything that we can, like this is now. And that's when I realized I was like, damn.
I was gonna say, when is the moment you realize Raph is gonna be something special?
Yeah, I mean,
Right
I already knew. Like there's an old video. Excuse me, I'm burping. These LaCroix are making me burp. I mean, it's all in the documentary, but there's this one ride. He's like, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old, and he puts a line together where he does like tension to blind, chromo, and heel 5, and I'm just losing it. I'm like, who is this kid? Oh shit, that's my younger brother. He's like 10 years old, 11 years old. Like, I didn't know very many other kids that were doing that at that age.
Yeah, especially a kid that doesn't ride you around.
And the ones that did were already like Bob Sovin, like names in the industry. Yeah. So like from that moment, I knew like if he continued on that path, he could be something. But when I really realized was right around there, like a little before that, like in the junior man when he could compete and he had all the tricks to win but couldn't put it together. But he never stopped. He kept getting better and he kept like trying. And then by that time, I was just like, when he turns it on, which he did, then it was going to be a complete different story.
He's got all the physical aspects of in terms of putting tricks down. He just has to be able to put it down when it counts. And once he figures that out, it's going to be
exactly
kind of lights out for a little bit.
I mean, yeah, but the best part was like when someone is like an underdog or not getting theirs for so long, and then they start, like, the beginning was like everyone was like, yeah, Raph is winning, like everyone's super proud and like happy and stoked.
Yeah.
But then, like, after 2 years of it or like a full season of it, then it started
Enough of
being
this
like
guy.
it's like, I don't know if you watch F1, but it's like Max Verstappen right now. Like, every event he wins,
Yeah.
and there's like no questions. So like it started kind of becoming like that.
I mean,
There
it's
was-
always like that in any sport, right? You root for the underdog, and then they start doing well, and you're like, okay, well, fuck this team. Like, they're winning too much.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of like that. Like, and then, there's two of us, and like one of my favorite thing about this industry is I feel like I'm friends with almost everybody. So I'd hang out with everyone, and then people are like, "Where's your brother? Why is he not drinking beer with us?" It's like 11:30, and I'm like, listen, like, he's doing his own thing. Like, I'm drinking beer with you, like, whatever. And then, like the next day, Raph didn't drink. Guess who showed up?
Raph Derome.
Hey.
He's doing his own thing, man. He's got it figured out. So who is the greatest wakeboarder of all time?
Ooh, I knew you'd ask that. There's different, obviously, like, I like the parameters because there's so many good answers. To me, it's my brother.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Yeah, of course. Like, I don't think anyone can replicate what he did. It's not about just being able to do the same tricks as some other guy. It's like to have the vision, to be able to create that path. It's about influencing people that don't even like you or want to follow you. Eventually, they have no choice if they want to keep up because that's become the new dimension, and a lot of the greats have had those moments, and for some, like, they get forgotten or it lasts a shorter amount of time. I mean, it's a short sport. That being said, like, Raph kind of likes to throw a smoke bomb and then disappear, and then, he's not there to hear if people are talking about him or not, right? So, like, he did what he had to do, and he's proud of what he did, and then if people remember him, great. If not, like, it's fine. He did what he wanted to do.
So speaking of throw a smoke bomb and kind of walk away, was there ever any points where Raph would not be around and people would be asking you what's going on with your brother?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a time where even his Liquid Force team manager, Aaron Grace, called me, and I'm like, I mean, I see Grace at almost every event. Like, obviously, we'd say what's up and, like, have a beer and whatnot, but it's not like we hung out or texted or chatted or, like, really spent much time with one another, because I'm not even working with any of the brands that he's working with. But he's calling me. He's like, "Where's your brother?" And I'm like, wait, why are you calling me?
You have his phone number.
Like, it's not my job, and, like, I don't want to be put in the middle, and, like, because I know Raph wants to keep everything tight and doesn't want me to tell anyone, because if I tell one person, then he might tell 3 people, then might tell 3 more, and then everybody knows what he's been doing.
But would he tell you everything?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
He
yeah.
would.
Oh, yeah.
You
And sometimes he'd be scared to tell me things because he knew that I'd, like, talk to everyone. So, like, he thought that I would, like, spill the beans, which I didn't. But he was so scared that I did, or that I would. So, yeah, anyways, Grace was like, "What's your brother doing? Like, tell him to call me." And I was like, walked over because I'm hanging out with Raph right now. And I'm like, "Hey, Raph, maybe you should text or call Grace. He's calling me."
It's kind of a little serious now, it
Like,
seems, at least.
It's one thing if, like, you don't call him out of your own will, but, like, if he's reaching out and you're not responding, it's something else.
Do you know, I mean, I'll eventually, if I do have Raph on, I'll ask him all this stuff, but was there any reasoning for his kind of stepping away and being quiet that he told you, or that you kind
He
of
just
picked up
wanted
on?
to be left alone and do his own thing. Like, he was so focused, he didn't want any other, I guess, getting sidetracked on anything else.
Yeah.
And it was not because, like, he was just so gung-ho on his project and what he wanted to do. And there was a lot of work involved. So, like, building rails, like, you're in the trenches, you're building rails. It takes a long time. Then you got to, like, try them out, figure them out, film it, set it up, get whatever needs to be done, tear it down, build a new one. Because those videos, he spent so much time building and tearing down. And there's only so many weeks to our summer up in Quebec. And there's other events, and there's like team shoots, and there's other trips that he's on. So when he's home for 3 weeks, like, don't bother me. I'm working on this.
Shut up and let me cook. I'm doing something here.
Basically, yes.
Well, it worked out pretty well. I mean, I'm sure some things were probably a little bit more stressful, but in the end, when you're looking back on it, there was a lot of successful projects and stuff that happened because of that. I want you to power rank these 5 water sports.
What do you got for me?
I got wakeboarding,
Okay.
water skiing,
Mhm.
kayaking,
Oh,
wake surfing, and then now this one's different. Wing foiling, but it's the wing foiling where you're holding the wing thing right in front of your face. Like the super close one. I see Gunther do it a lot. You know what I'm talking about?
I think
The
so.
wings,
Is
like,
it the one
a
that
little
has
bigger than
like
this table,
it has
maybe.
like a see-through plastic, so you can kind of see through?
Yeah,
while you're
some of
doing
them do have that. Yeah,
it? Okay.
I had to specify in that
Yeah,
last one.
yeah. Okay. Say them again. So wakeboarding, water skiing, wake surfing, kayaking, and the wing foiling.
But with the wing right in front of your face.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously having it in your face makes it seem less attractive because I've obviously not gotten my my riding is not up to par to go foiling with the wing in my face. So I will put that at the bottom.
For what it's worth, I would
I
as
mean,
well.
I would probably have no fun doing it. Like, I'm sure that if I figure it out, that would be more fun. Then I would probably put, fuck it, wake surfing in 4th, kayaking in 3rd, water skiing 2nd, wakeboarding 1st.
That's the way I wrote it down here, so that's perfect.
I mean, I really like wake surfing, but like kayaking, it's peaceful. You're in nature.
Or it can be gnarly.
There's no boat. I would kayak, chill in
You
my
would
hometown.
leisurely kayak.
Right by a lot of the wind spots that you've seen in my brother's videos. There's a kayak club right there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
So I would go kayaking there.
Scope some spots on the yak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I mean, in the rapids and down waterfalls, like, that sounds pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Have to get acclimated to that for sure. But
Yeah, if you know how to do the upside down flip thing
turtle
technique.
yourself or whatever you
Yeah,
call it. Yeah. Duck dive. Maybe that's.
I
what they call
haven't
it.
learned how to do that. I haven't spent much time on a kayak.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in that either, but it's definitely less, or it's more appealing than for me, the foiling thing with the thing in your face. I don't know. I always see
mean,
that.
honestly,
It bugs me.
honestly, like, foiling in the ocean seems so rad. Like, surfing
like
is
some of the
cool, but you
coolest
don't have to paddle as much because you can pump yourself back into the turn, and then you can, like, bold turn into the wave. Like, that seems freaking rad.
Oh, I wish I was good enough to be able to do that stuff. That would be, I mean, it'd be awesome. Okay, let's talk about some board sponsors. You touched on a little bit earlier, kind of getting some flow from some people.
Mm-hmm.
When did you sign with Ronix?
Okay, 07 fall, there's the Ronix Amasalt at the projects. We go there, Raph gets picked. He becomes the 7th man on Ronix. And then as that is happening, industry stuff, right? So the Canadian distributor for Ronix at the time, HO Sports, through Murray Fraser, he's good friends with Paul O'Brien, so he becomes the Ronix distributor for Canada as well. So he offers me, hey, do you want to ride Ronix? Do you want to ride Hyperlite? I said, well, I want to ride Ronix. So then I get on Ronix, flow through the Canadian distributor. And then for another year or two, and then I'm starting to do well on the Pro Tour, and I'm trying to work up to getting a contract. So I signed with basically the Canadian distributor, where he would pay me, I think it was like $400 a month, and then half of the money was coming, or 800, yeah, I think it was 400. Half of it was coming in boards from Ronix to the Canadian distributor. So like Paul Bryan and Ronix USA is also supporting me. So it's basically half and half.
Gotcha.
But the
Okay.
money comes from the Canadian distributor.
Gotcha.
So that's how they worked out that support. So I did that for a couple years.
Okay. And that was like your official, I mean, did you ever sign a contract with them or?
I think I signed some sort of like paperwork with the Canadian distributor. It wasn't with Ronix USA, I would say, I guess.
Okay.
But I mean, that was always the goal. So I was working towards that. I was working towards hopefully getting a contract from Ronix, because that's who I want to ride for. And then Raph had left Ronix. So I was like, well, I'm one step closer, right? But unfortunately, my turn never came, and I realized that when they had the big pool set up at Radar. I don't know if you remember that. Like Ruck won.
Did Ruck get Trick of the Year on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like he back mobed up.
Yep.
So they invite everyone on the team except for me, and I'm basically their North American rider that goes to do all the cable contests and the rail guy. I'm like the rail guy, and that year I think I was like second best on Ronix on the Pro Tour. So I was like, you must be kidding me. So by then, I was like, any better offer that, like, my head is starting to turn and looking every other way. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm being respected or like.
There's just not a future here for me, obviously.
Exactly.
They told me that by not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it was personal. Like, I understand more now that I'm older and I get to understand a lot more of the other side of the industry.
Sure.
Summers are so short. Everything happens so fast. You have to organize like 10 riders, a filmer, a photographer, this and that. Like, there's so much happening. It still doesn't excuse that, if they wanted me to be a part of it, that they left me out. So, like, it's a bummer. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not disappointed with how things went.
Yeah, absolutely. So what comes next after? So you're on Ronix a few years, getting $400 or whatever a month. Kind of realized maybe my turn's not going to come up. What is the next thing on the horizon there for you?
Through the summer, Wade Wagley, who was the brand manager at Slingshot, came over to Wakestock, Canada, and then he drove back to Montreal with us. Well, with us, like he had his own rental car. And then I actually jumped in the car with him because Raph was too shy to jump in the car with him to drive for 7 hours. And obviously, like, loudmouth Ollie was going to be like, yeah, sure. So I jumped in with him, and we chatted the whole way there. He spent like 2 days, and he had brought a bunch of boards. So Raph and Ben Leclerc and I tried a bunch of boards. Well, it was mostly Raph. And then, like, on the last day, Ben and I were like, can we try some boards? So, of course, he let us have a go. Because, this is good gossip. So when Slingshot was first launching and they were looking to build, like, the next generation team, they were looking at signing Raph and Steele Lafferty together. So for the rest of that summer, Raph and Steele would talk because they're both on Liquid Force. They're both, like, about to, like, start earning something decent, but they're still in their juniors or late junior, like, about to break through or starting to break through. And it was almost like, well, if we do it together, we're down. But, like, how much are you willing to go? How much are you willing to go? So I think it was at that era also where Liquid Force had basically had all the best Groms. So they had Daniel Powers, they had Mitch Langfield, they had Bob Sovin, they had obviously Steele and Raph and Massey, and, like, they had them all. You name it, they had them. I think Corey Tunison was also on Liquid Force, if I remember correctly. And then what ended up happening is that neither of them went.
Interesting.
And then
I had no idea.
Wade hit me up, and Wade was like, hey, Ollie, are you interested? And I knew I could ride flex boards because a year and a half prior, when I'm still riding for Onyx, I was approached by Company Boards, Justin Stevens. I almost rode for Company.
Wow.
I was so excited about all of that. I went to, like, a team meeting at Greg Nekrassen's. So originally, I think it was supposed to be Vandal. That was supposed to be, like, the poster boy. That fell through. So it was Nekrassen and Tino and Eddie Valdez, Justin Fisher, Nicola Butler. So they had a stacked team.
Yeah.
And then, like, I was so stoked on the concept and the idea. I'd grown up watching all of the Justin Stevens videos and all that. That didn't come around. I don't know exactly what fell through. I think I need to call Paul Bryan and Justin Stevens to really understand what happened because apparently they spoke to each other and then, like, it just, nothing changed. So I don't know what it was. Like, I assumed that it was like, well, company's not going to pay you. You're getting a bit of money from Ronix, so maybe you should stay Ronix.
Okay. Could have been that simple.
Something like that. Anyhow, Slingshot came around, and I was talking to Wade. Wade gave me a shot, and we signed a 3-year deal with slight steps up. And like for the first time in wakeboarding, I didn't feel like I was getting haggled. Like I didn't feel like they were trying to like play me and
Take
like
advantage of you.
yeah, like promise me something. And like they gave me like a straight up deal that I was like, that's legit. Like if that's what you're saying I'm worth, like I am proud of what you're telling me. The only thing I think I negotiated on top was like, hey, I want the travel budget in there so I don't have to wait for a paycheck. Put my travel budget in my monthly retainer.
Gotcha.
And then I'll figure out my own itinerary.
Okay. So, sign Slingshot, 3-year deal, you say it goes
Sign
up.
with Slingshot.
What's it look like? What's year 1, year 2, year 3?
I think it was 3rd year you get a pro model.
Oh, that was in the contract.
Yep.
Okay.
3rd year you get a pro model. I think it was like probably $1,500, $1,700, $1,900 a month or something like that. I think. Like it's hard to remember, but it's somewhere around there.
And no like kicker for the pro model in terms of sales and stuff. Just
I think the typical is like $5 a board.
that was in there.
Something like that. It was in there. But by the time my 3rd year came in, Jeff McKee was the team manager. Jeff came in like the 2nd year. Well, Jeff was already like on the team, but he came in as team manager like the 2nd year I was there. And I loved that team. I loved that gang. I loved the energy. Like Jeff House, which I met a long, long time ago. Actually, my first year that I came to Florida for World 2002. I had met Kevin Henshaw, and he was friends with Grassman and Jeff House and a couple of the guys, Phil Combs and all those guys. And like I broke my leg actually at OWC on the S-Rail. That's a different story. Do you have that in there?
No, I don't.
Oh, we'll have a good tangent to go on after this. But anyhow, those guys like Grassman and House really took me in and made me feel like I had some friends on the scene in the U.S. It was my first trip like competing abroad. So to find him again on that team was awesome. And I really felt like I had something to prove. And I, for the first time, had an opportunity to cover some grounds of like advancing my career with the company and had something to build towards.
Yeah.
Slingshot was like more of an underdog brand coming into like a newer market. And like I had never been given my shot really, or at least I felt like it. So like it just matched. I was like, I'm on a mission. And the cool part was like Slingshot was more they were like a flex board company, right? And I was a rider that could do both. So I was basically their boat rider doing good results in contests. And I would also travel to Europe and do cable stuff. Yeah. So my favorite part was the fact that I could do it all. Ride boat, ride cable, US, Europe, Asia, Australia.
You name it.
Mr. Worldwide. I got to do all these trips on Slingshot, and like I felt at home, and it felt like I was realizing like my childhood dream of like being a top pro. Like I felt like I was living that.
Yeah, finally happening.
Yeah.
So what other sponsors do you have at this time? You signed with Slingshot. What was that? 2011 probably with Slingshot. Do you have any other paying sponsors?
2012, I think.
2012?
First year. 12, 13, 14. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. You have any other sponsors that are paying you at this time too?
Yeah, I had gotten on Malibu Boats. So that was a nice one. Another brand that I felt at home with, the team, the vibe, the energy. Brian Thomas, shout out, the team manager there was awesome. Who else was I with?
Oakley.
Rockstar. I was with Oakley for a little bit, and that fell through eventually. Yeah, Rockstar was an interesting one, similar to Tony and stuff. Like, to me, it was like we're on tour. Dishman approaches Raph and I, and he's like, "Hey, Rockstar wants to sign you guys, like right now." And then Raph had always been in the talks.
They're quick.
They'd already been in the talks. Well, I mean, they'd been working on that for a while.
I know.
They'd seen us for events and stuff. But Raph was always in the talks of like signing with Red Bull. And Raph was like, "Oh, no, like I'm not signing right now." And like, is that a good idea for me? Like Rockstar, Red Bull, like I don't know. And I was like, I'm never gonna get a contract from Red Bull. Like Monster is stacked. Rockstar is like about to be stacked, but I'll get on the last wave. Like, sure, sign me up. So I signed, and Yeah. Then Oakley, I was on for a little bit. I was actually on O'Neill wetsuits for a while, and I had traded basically XL wetsuits for O'Neill, but I had to get the clothing also. And then Oakley was just sunglasses. And then Billabong wetsuits eventually, because I got off O'Neill, then I was Oakley clothing and sunglasses, and I was Billabong wetsuits through Canada, Canadian distributor. So that's where I felt like I found an advantage finally from being not an American rider, was I could get some deals through the Canadian distributors.
Yeah.
On a different budget, because they also are given budgets for different sports and categories. And then leading up, like 06, 07, and then the crash of 08, right before that, Oakley had push process, Billabong had out of the pond. And then I was like, I'm going pro. I was starting to turn some heads in the pros. And then that happened. And then I saw all of my hopes and dreams with two of those big brands, like,
Crushed.
it's over. So that was a bummer. But things worked out. Man, Follow came in. I was their first North American rider, so that was cool.
I didn't know you were the first.
I was
North American.
So it was Chris O, Mitch, Brenton and Mitch. Like, I don't know the sequence.
Yeah.
But it was those three guys, and then I think I was their first North American rider, and I went to Australia for the first time. That was epic.
I can only imagine.
Man, it was cool. And if they did it right, like their first team trip, like they did a real freaking legit team trip.
Yeah.
Like in the end, like they went over budget and like it was a bit of a struggle after that. But like everything that came from there, like the team energy, the content, like how the brand was viewed from that alone, I think was probably worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Interesting. So, okay. We got Oakley, we got Rockstar. I mean, we got some big companies in. What was the highest paying one?
Slingshot on my second sign.
Let's talk about the second sign then. What's that looking like?
Well, I didn't get my pro model on my third year. I got it on my fourth year.
Okay.
And then it was a 3-year deal with 3 pro models. So that was really fun. I got to design a board.
I mean, that's one of your
in the R&D,
check
and
boxes,
then
right?
I got to create 3 different graphics 3 years in a row. We did Lip Smack, we did the movie this time around, we did .au, which was a trip in Australia. So those 3 years were amazing. That contract, I think it was like 24, 26, 28, or something like that.
Plus $5 a board.
Yeah. I sold decent amount of board the first year and a half. The first year was okay. The second year I think was good. Actually, I had 4 years of pro model. 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 4.
Okay.
So the first 2 years I think I sold decent. In the last 2 years they produced less, so I was limited to my success.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the end. You know, that's when you learn as you go how everything works more, right?
Well, and we'll get into a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you have some advice now, and I want to get into that in a little bit. But so, what was your pro model board? Just run everyone through what the board design was and your thought process into going.
Okay, so like at Slingshot, I was, like I said, like a guy that was riding boat and cable.
Yeah.
And like we were an era where a lot of brands were doing one boat board and one cable board or rail board, you know. So the concept was to have one board that could do it all. And they had fins that were a little shorter and a little wider. So like that's what I rode on the boat contest side. So I could still press and I could still like, you know, front board on my tail or whatnot and like not rip off the fins.
Yeah.
So I wanted a board that was going to be fast on the water because you want to land with speed. I had busted both my knees already, so I needed a board that was going to not make it worse on my knees. So I wanted a little bit wider for rail surface, obviously a little wider tips, but not making it too draggy for riding the boat. And I like the fast board on edge, but then I kind of like the idea of having a 3-stage rocker. So it was kind of like somewhat of a hybrid. But the first few trials of the prototypes, like it was like sick on the boat, and then I take it to OWC and like it wouldn't work. It was like too fast, or like it would suction cup to the features. I forget the name of the engineer that came out with the shape. It was actually it was Tony Lagauche. Tony Lagauche was like, okay, you guys have worked on this project long enough. Like, you haven't figured it out. Like, let me take a grasp of it. So, like, he figured out what I needed, and then they actually used that same pattern on different boards, just in different, like, variables of how they were doing the channel, which was great. Like, I love that board. I still have used versions of those 4 years.
You don't have any new ones sitting around, but used ones?
No. I should look online, see if I can buy one.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
If
you got one to sell that's brand new, hit me up.
As long as you don't buy that scurfer out from under me, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, man, I'm tempted.
So what was your biggest year financially, would you say?
Probably those last 2 years. The second last year at Slingshot, because the last year at Slingshot, they didn't do what they said they were going to do.
Which was?
Pay me.
They didn't pay you?
Nah.
Anything?
They paid me my royalties.
But not your salary?
Not my salary.
Interesting.
Which is why the last year I rode a board that was all painted black on top.
You pulled that move.
I had to.
Love that move.
I had to.
It's a great move.
I'm the veteran on your team. I'm top paid as a single rider. Like, Shred Town altogether earned more than me.
Yeah.
But like, I'm your first ranking rider. I'm doing both cable and boat. I have a presence in every single continent. I'm doing boat shows. I'm in magazines with boat brands. I'm involved like in every level, on every platform. I'm there. And then they stopped paying me.
What was the reason? Did you ever get a reason?
They changed a budget, cut in budget, and I was like, I was willing to work with them. I was like, hey, you want to, like, give me less? And like, like, I understand, like, if you're cutting my entire salary, maybe you can trim everybody a little bit. Like, it's a team effort. I still want to be on the team.
Yeah.
I'm friends with everyone. I feel like I'm an integral part of the brand. I've given you all of my best years, and on my last year, you're going to do that? Like, and this was after I actually did my Achilles. I ruptured my Achilles, and then the last year when I'm coming back is when they said, we're not paying you. So I was like, okay, you're going to play that card. Like, I was really upset. Took some time before
I was going to say, still a little bit sour, or is it all pretty?
No, it's all gone. Like, it doesn't remove the fact that they did what they did.
Sure.
But I accepted it. It's been a couple years now. Yeah, I've had time to accept it.
I mean, yeah, you went through COVID.
It took me like a good 2 years to like get over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Just, like, that's not how you do good business.
For sure.
And like, respect to McKee for making those calls. Like, when you're a team manager and you got to make those shitty calls, like, with your friends, like, that sucks. At the same time, there were other moments where you did some stuff and I was like, okay, I'm not down. This isn't cool. Like, Jeff, come on.
Yeah.
But I mean,
business
is business. Exactly.
Is business. So Raph wants to know, Slingshot or Liquid Force?
I haven't ridden a Slingshot since I didn't have to anymore. So I respected my contract and I rode my painted pro model until my contract ended.
It wasn't in the...
And I haven't ridden a Slingshot board since.
It wasn't in the contract that you couldn't paint over your graphics?
No. And I mean, what are they going to do? Like, they got my check already.
Yeah, that's true. What's there left to come for now? Nothing.
So, yeah, the answer is, for me, Liquid Force. I ride Liquid Force. Since that contract ended, I tried all the different boards, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to support my brother. I'm going to ride every single thing that he reps. So I ride his boat board, I ride his cable board, I ride his boots. Still now, like, in my board bag, I flew here yesterday. I have like a 4 or 5 seasons ago boat and cable raft board.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't need the new and latest. I'm cool with it.
Hey, I mean, yeah, that goes to show you don't need a brand new board as long as you got one under your feet.
So, Raph, the answer is neither. It's I ride what you ride, but now you don't ride anymore. So
I ride what you used to ride.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, he rode this summer actually.
Did he?
Raph still rides, yeah.
Okay.
Still sick.
Of course. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Expect nothing less there.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Let's. So you mentioned Rockstar. How were you with the posting of the Rockstar? The two. What was it? 2 month?
Yeah, 2 posts a month.
How were you with that? Pretty good.
I mean, I was pretty on top of doing what I needed to do, but I did not enjoy it. I must say, like, that ruined social media for me. Once those contracts ran out, I mean, you can have a look if you want how often on my handle, how many times I've posted since like 2020, 2019, not very much. I'm like on the story, I watch what everyone's doing, I like comment, but like I don't post anything anymore. Like I don't, yeah.
Interesting. I mean, those Rockstar can ones, it's almost, you almost want to do those at like 3 a.m. when no one sees them. That's the kind of move I feel like a lot of people would play.
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's like a forced, I mean.
Well, it's, yeah, like growing up being such a fan of like action sports and like snowboarding and skateboarding and surfing and moto and this and that, like I didn't see the value in doing that.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that it brings good value by me doing thing that devaluates me.
It's almost like someone in a meeting was like, oh yeah, and we'll have them do 2 posts a month. And everyone was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Boom, it's in everyone's contract.
Well, I mean, I get it. Like you need to do something if they're paying you.
Sure.
Right?
It's not very creative though.
No. And, you know, if it was more like, hey, everyone do one and like you guys focus on this first week, you guys focus on the second week, because what ended up happening was like at every Pro Tour or like Rockstar contest, someone would take a shot there, but everyone would do it at the same time. So it's like you open your Instagram and there's like 15, because Rockstar was stacked. So there's 15 photos of Rockstar cans, and then you don't see them for a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, like I didn't see the value in doing that. Like if I don't come off, because it's like social media allowed everyone to have their personal brand. So if I felt like I was devaluating my brand by too much posting the same stuff that has no impact, then I'm not just lowering the impact and the value of my brand, but also yours.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, well, I mean, there's also the fact that like it wasn't cool.
I mean, it's pretty,
you know, and that's just my opinion. And I'm from a certain generation, like I'm going to be 38, like, you know, maybe someone that's like 10 years younger is like, yeah, Instagram's the greatest. I love posting like that. And like, it's cool. Yeah, it is cool. But if you're not using it, I don't know. I think we've talked enough of this subject.
Okay, I actually do have a question that ties into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So brands' budgets for athletes, strictly athletes, have shrunk undoubtedly since the days you were in it, since the days before you were in it. If you had any advice now that you are a little bit more behind the scenes and you've lived getting contracts, to have any advice for riders that want to get a piece of the pie, that want to get enough to live off of from brands, what would it be?
Get involved. Like in my era, no social media, right? The only way to get involved is to show up. There's a contest, there's a boat show, there's a movie showing. You go, you meet people, you get amongst it, you know, and you keep going, because that's the only way that you, get to, you know, if you enjoyed that much, you get to learn from the industry. You get to be exposed to it. B, if you're shy and you're kind of in the background, but you ride really well, well, then you have like an impact with your riding. If you have an impact on shore because you're helping the retailers set up the tent and sell some stuff, or if you're helping with judging, or if you are like me, hey, I'll be road bitch. I want to watch the pros ride. I'll undo the knots as quick as I can and take my time if my favorite rider is going next and I want it to get flatter, like whatever, like just get involved. That's the only way to break through. That's the first step. Like you can be the best rider in the world, but until then, you bring no value if you're not a part. Like if you're not helping and supporting and growing, and like if you're not trying to make it better, if you're not presenting yourself and you're just on your phone making a post every once in a while, like, you're not going to break through that way. So the first step is get involved, get amongst it, work on your personality, work on your knowledge, work on your writing. All those things are important.
Absolutely. That's get involved in person is a big one too. I mean, I feel like, because you were just saying you can make a post, you could scroll through like stuff, but are you really doing anything real in terms of like the culture of the sport and getting people into it from just behind the screen of your phone? Looking back, would you have approached any sponsors or contracts differently?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, every little bit of experience helps, right? So, like, the more you learn, the better you navigate it. Also, like, the first step is, like, try not to expect too much. You know, like, it's your dream. You want it so bad, like, your expectations are sky high. And then more often than not, you're going to turn around and be, disappointed. But, of course, like, I learned a great deal through the years of, like, being quite green and not necessarily understanding, the concept of how things work. And, for a teenager to just see the best riders getting, paid and making a living, it's not just about being a good rider. There's a lot more things. So, like, learning how to navigate the contracts and the right people and how to talk about it, how to board the subjects, how to do that, understanding. And that's one of the biggest things that I realized later on that frustrated me, was that there was no one there to help teach and to help transcend the knowledge and, like, to help the next generation to make it and to keep it going, right? And, like, I had some really cool, fun team managers, and I had some not so great ones along the way. But at the end of the day, I'm still mad that there was not one that was like, hey, this year you focus on this. This year you focus on this. Instead, it's just like, hey, well, if you do something that's good for you, it's good for us. In my generation, you did boat contests, rail contests, cable contests, boat shows, demos, coaching. Like, you did every single thing. So, like, when they said do everything, I still did everything. So how could I really help you if you don't tell me how I can help you?
And those are the people with the advice and the knowledge and the wisdom to actually help you, right?
Well, like, if they're team manager, they're part of the marketing team. They know the trajectory of the brand. They know where the brand's going, what they're focused on. Is this product? Is this, like, brand? Is it, like, putting on events? Like, what do you need your riders to do to help the brand? And then the more you help the brand, the better value your rider gets. In the era that I was in, it was also like, well, if you get an ad with one brand and then you get another ad with the other brand, well, then you basically get both their brands out there.
Yeah.
And then let's say you get a photo section full page. Well, the ads they paid for, but this one you get from your riding and, like, I guess the way you can navigate the industry. Like, you work with the photographer and another rider or two to set up a morning session or a rail or this or that. Like, it was, yeah.
So having the TMs be more involved in the sense of the vision for what the riders are not expected of, but advice for them would be something that you would
just direction at least.
Beneficial direction.
Just direction at least.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you get any direction from TMs that you can use as a good example?
Not as much as I would have liked. And I didn't see that very much, and I had to dig for it.
See that very much from other riders or just for you specifically?
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I mean, with my brother, same thing. Like, he always had his own vision, which hats off to him.
It's kick-ass vision, yeah.
Yeah, kick-ass vision. I wish I would have had a better vision. My vision was, like, I first got into this sport because, like, obviously I loved being on the water and, like, board sports. Then I started seeing videos in, like, the magazines, and, like, the lifestyle was a huge thing too. You know, like, the having fun on the water. Obviously, like, I'm a teenager, like, parties and bikinis and, like, flips and, like, you know, all this crazy athletic stuff. And, like, there were a lot of stunts back then too, and, like, daredevil type, you know, approach and vision. And, like, all of that excited me. And, like, that was it. That pulled me in so hard. And then, like, it's obviously the sport's evolved and changed over the years. And obviously so has the sponsor budgets for a lot of brands that were in or out of the industry, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that was some great knowledge coming from Ollie D right there. I got a question. So, who made more money from wakeboarding, you or Raph?
I'll let you have a guess.
I know Raph lost some money on some projects, or spent his own money on some projects. So I don't know if we count that into the equation.
Hold on, time. Do you know anyone who doesn't have to spend their own money on projects?
Well, I don't know anything about I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know.
Well, we're
Back in the day, I guess.
Yeah, okay. So short answer, Raph made quite a bit more than I did. But back to the prior conversation about like how to help riders, this and that. Like the biggest thing is always invest in yourself. Reinvest in yourself. I've seen so many riders break through. They were like young up and coming studs. They get their first big deal and then
take a seat.
Then they're sick. Then they made it. You know, now they are pro. They're wearing their hat. They got this, they got that. So they're partying a little bit more. I mean, partying is always the scapegoat. Like, it's always the first and easy thing to say that someone's not doing what they should be doing just because they're partying too much. It's kind of shit, but it's kind of true. Just saying that, like, once you get your first contract, well, then it's not like you get to stack that money in your pocket. No, you need to reinvest it, because if you don't get to the next level where you get to get paid more. So, like, if you get paid, well, then you need to take that money and travel and do the contest, or hire someone to help you film you or take photos, or you go taking off some winter trip so that you can keep riding in the winter and, like, make new friends and, like, take photos in different places. And, like, you know, you always got to put more into where you're trying to go.
And in terms of the view of the sport and the where the sport goes, that's also crucial in terms of progression of the sport, getting content out there. It's like, if you're one of the people who gets paid and then takes a step back, it's like you're kind of not fulfilling the role that a top pro should be, which is to continue to push the boundaries and continue to grow yourself, to grow the sport along with you, I think, at least.
Of course. And it comes back to, like, the first tip that I gave is get involved. Help make it better, help grow it. You got to physically be involved. Well, if you're not spending your time helping it, progressing it, whether, like, it's physically with events or, like, with a vision, a project, this and that, whatever it is, if you're not putting in the work, well, then nothing's coming back.
Yeah. Why are you even here? I mean, at a certain point, why are you even involved anymore if you're not involved?
Like, if your goal was just to make it and ride it out, like, that's fine. But then don't be sour when the bus didn't come back to pick you up for your next contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on earlier breaking your leg at OWC, and I want to bring that up again because I didn't really know about this. So run us through breaking your leg at OWC.
Okay, so
a little shift, but
did you ever see the Wakeboarding Mag cover of Kyle Schmidt on a S-rail?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so he actually broke his leg on that rail too. He fell through and exploded his patella, hitting one of the posts. At least that's the story that I got. So a lot of things, like, I don't know if they're really fact checks or not, but, like, that's at least enough, what I understand, or I've been led to understand over the years. So anyways, this is 2002 Worlds, Orlando. It's the last stop of the Vans Triple Crown on the boat side. And then, you know, the Slider Spectacular. So it's like the infancy of that. So they had, like, one of the nights before, I think it's the Friday night before, like, the weekend of all the pro events, they do, like, a nighttime ride contest at OWC. And lots of the pros are riding, and, like, everyone's gathered, and it's great. Like, I'm just eating it up, right? Or at least I thought I was going to, because I show up, I think, like, on a Wednesday. So this is my first time going to Worlds. This is 2002. It's the first time I went to Canadian Nationals and competed. So I met Rusty and Henshaw and Steve McKinley and, you know, Brady Price and a lot of the big names in Canada at the time. And then we get to Florida. Rusty's there. My parents pick him up. Rusty and I are, like, a year apart, so we're hanging out. We're going to the cable park. My parents go to visit some friends, and we're riding the S-Rail. but the S rail isn't capped, and it's last corner before Motor Tower, so coming back to the left, and I fell through. I would like try just the second C, I guess, and eventually I tried the whole thing a couple times, and like I got in and I banked into the inside and I fell through and I ran my leg into another post, and then I'm in the water and I'm like, oh my god, this is 2 days before the contest starts. My parents aren't here. I think I just broke my leg. This is the worst. So I swim out to where like I can touch the bottom. I somehow managed to take my board off. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my weight on my leg in the water with my vest on to see like how bad it is. I barely put my foot down and it just feels terrible. I'm like, fuck. So like I swim to shore, I'm sitting down, and then Rusty comes and picks me up. And I still have this vivid memory of like watching Rusty's feet and seeing mud come through his toes and holding my leg with 2 hands because I didn't want it to move. And I'm just looking down at my leg and being so scared. And then they called the ambulance, rushed an ambulance, whatever. I broke my fib.
Ugh. Got to skirt the rails. Rails got to be skirted. It's wow, gnarly.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
How long was the recovery on that?
Think it was like the typical 5-6 weeks in a cast, like thigh to ankle. And then the day that we removed it, we went on a graduation school trip. So we went from Montreal to New York City and DC to visit museums and walk around for 4 days. That was my PT.
Built some muscle back up real quick.
Man, it was long days.
Gotta be drinking a lot
Thank
of
God
milk.
thank God for my friends who at the end of the day, like seeing me struggle with my cane and stuff, they were like, "You want to piggyback?" Yes, please.
Absolutely. All right, you are a self-proclaimed. I don't want to use the word wake nerd, but you seem to.
Okay, yeah, wake nerd. Yeah, I'm a
you
wake
seem
nerd.
to dabble in some wake history. So I've got some trivia for you.
Ooh, I'm scared.
And yeah, so you got some wakeboard knowledge. First question: who invented wakeboarding's most overrated trick, the tantrum to blind?
Oh,
I don't know the year, but
don't know. Is it Greg Nekrasov?
it is not.
It must be before that.
I'll give you 2 more guesses.
I don't know that one. I'm really gonna try. Could it be like Eric? Is it Schmaltz or Schultz?
Nope.
No.
When I tell you, you're gonna be like, "Wow."
Gator?
Nope.
No, he's more front flip.
Darren
guy.
Shapiro.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Darren did invent a lot of freaking tricks. He's a tank.
Yeah, sneaky. I
He's
feel like
a
a lot of people
tank.
don't think about it, but he did. Who had the ending part in the 2016 wakeboard film Dog Days?
Randall.
No.
What?
What do you mean? What?
Damn. I haven't even watched Dog Days in a while. Sorry, Trevor.
Yeah, everyone who
Is
hasn't seen
it-
Dog Days. Go
Is
watch
it
Dog Days.
Twelker? Must be
It's
Twelker.
Twelker, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't even write that down, so I knew that one off the top of the dome there. In the 2023 ZMT project Violet, how many street spots did Jake Flynn hit? And this is multiple choice, so you got options here.
Violet was produced by ZMT?
Yeah, Dylan Mead.
Okay.
It's on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, right on.
Have you seen it?
I did.
Okay. So I'll get
How many street spots?
Yeah. How many different street spots? Because there's one park spot. I'm not including that in the count here. I'll give you, if you can guess first. Otherwise, I'll give you 4 options. A little multiple choice.
I'm gonna say like 14.
Close. 12.
Ooh,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I know that it was a lot, and like a lot is like not 20 and winching. Like a lot is like like
Anything north of 10 for a
Yeah.
video project.
Close to a dozen is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Okay.
Right on. You
Pretty
scared
close.
me. I knew you were gonna come at me with some stuff that.
See, Randall with Dog Days. That's like the obvious answer.
Well, it's like I remember like that one section, and obviously those tricks. I was just like
So good.
that stood out so much that like the go-to thought of Dog Days is like Randall. Obviously, the whole West Coast gang, and there's so much good writing in that movie and how it's presented. And the last 4 or 5 years, I can't say that I've watched enough wakeboarding videos.
Gotta give him some rewatches.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Speaking of videos, quiet please.
Mm.
I said quiet please.
Mm.
Quiet, please. How did this group of riders get chosen?
So it was a Trans World Wake project, I believe led by Sean Perry at the time. And so like typical movies, like brands support, and then brands kind of submit or choose which riders they would like to be, and then they have the discussion with the media production to see like if it fits and this and that. So originally it was supposed to be Shred Town for Slingshot, and I think before that, so originally I think it was supposed to be this whole crew and then with Raph. And then Raph was doing his own project, so he, I guess, opted out. And then Slingshot got on, and it was going to be Shred Town. And then I don't know exactly what happened, if they already started working on their own project or if they were about to. So then they were out or opted out. And then they handed me the opportunity like halfway into the project. And I was like, let's do it. I'm in. Like, I've never had, like, a full part in a non-team video. So I was like, please let me have this opportunity. I'm down. And it was great because Rathy's in the movie, and that's who I partnered up to try and we had limited opportunities to film. The main filmer resided in California, so we didn't get to film with him very much. He took, like, a trip or two to Orlando. And then the rest of the time we're like, well, shit, we have a full part we have to acquire clips. How do we do that? Can we, like, film with friends that have cameras? Can we pay them? How does it work? Like, we're trying to figure all that out. And then eventually when we did, then, you know, my old friend Patrick Whelan, who I did lots of projects with at Slingshot, was the man that we were working with to get some shots when Neil wasn't around.
Love it. What's it like to follow Randall's part in a video?
Ooh, it's not easy.
Especially that part.
Yeah.
I mean, Randall's got a lot of good parts, but
I mean, that one goes hard. I remember when Bear was like, I heard a rumor Randall's getting that new Lil Wayne song for his track. And Bear with Birdman got the rights to do it.
He got the rights?
I think he did.
Wow.
Something like that.
Like
I said, maybe we need the fact checks. Maybe
maybe we don't need to fact check that. And
Maybe
he
we
did get
don't.
the rights. And he got the rights.
Maybe he did. Anyways, I just remember Bear saying it's going to be Lil Wayne to Randall.
It's going to go hard.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but my favorite part, you're bringing up Randall, quiet please. So in one of my in the first few shots that I have, I'm doing a setup off of Rathy's dock. It's a kicker with a fence and a down bar. And then Randall is pulling me on the jet ski. That was cool.
Yeah, that was sick. I mean, that's a really long down bar in that. Or at least it looked long with
and we had to go fast because I had to clear the fence and I had to wait before I could pass my board over. And we had to drive fast and on a turn because there's like weeds and stuff like that. And it was really fun to work on that process with Randall to get it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, you get to work with one of your heroes. And, like, I didn't really get to hang out with Randall very much. And obviously, he's a quite intimidating figure when you're a wake nerd and, like, he's there and, like, you know, his style and his accent and the tattoos and the way he dresses and, like, all the energy that's around.
270 better be fucking
like,
teed up.
I'm not just going to go up as a little guy and be like, hey, what's up, man? Like, can you tell me something cool? Like, you know? So, like, getting to hang out with him on that project and, like, to work on that with him was really cool.
At the beginning of your part, I don't know if you remember this, but you're nodding at the camera for, like, a long time. What were you nodding at? Do you remember? Or was it just...
I have no idea.
I want to put that clip in.
I can't remember. But yeah, put the clip on, or at least maybe when we finish this interview, I'll have a look so I could have a good laugh.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
I assume that it's probably going on longer than real life because it's slow mode.
It is slow mode. Like all great wakeboard movies, it has a lot of slow-mo.
Noise.
What's up with the fake closeout of the projects that you built in that video? This was a personal thing I had to get off my chest.
Like I said, we were struggling for clips, hey? So we're like, we need like rail hits. We need more rail hits. Where can we build something cool? Where do we have like room to? So called up Travis and Pat and we're like, can we come to the projects and do something? And they're like, yeah. So we show up and like we just piece some stuff together. Like, I actually rode in jeans in one of those shots.
Yeah, I see you did.
Like wake pant style.
Sure did.
Yeah, I remember the clip. But yeah, the closeout, like obviously the idea was to make a closeout. But you're being pulled with a jet ski. The rope can get caught and like break stuff. Like I can get caught and break stuff. It's the middle of the season. I also have contests and demos and coaching and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm not making a dime from being in a video part. Like, you don't get paid to be in a video part. Like, you're putting...
You pay time and money.
blood and tears, too.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I obviously wanted to do something cool, but I didn't want to die. I came close to... I ate pretty good shit on one of those clips.
You did.
Glad I didn't die.
Closeout did give way, thankfully, though.
Yeah, well, of course. Well, I mean, the gate is actually probably the same weight I am, so like I need to hit it pretty hard to get it moving.
That's a good point. That's a good point. What's your favorite clip from your part in that movie, or clips? You can have a couple.
I think my ender is my favorite, just because of the concept.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Was that Shred Town, right?
No, I was at the projects.
Really?
Yeah, they had a 2.0 in the Cove.
Oh, it looked like it was.
Well, I say the projects. It's the boarding school. I'm sorry, Travis. It's the boarding school. I'm just that old, and you know, like I got some memories.
You know, I've tried to get Travis on quite a bit, so you can keep saying the projects. And he said he's down, but we just can never make it happen.
I mean, he's a busy man. You're actually, if you want to have a real shot, like you have to go interview him there.
No, I moved to Florida, build a fucking studio. Come here. Come on. We'll make it happen.
Yeah,
We'll make it happen. All right, so that's 720.
Yeah, double shifty cab 7. Like I always thought like shifties were cool, and I was like, well, there needs to be like a reason why you're doing a shifty and you're not grabbing your board. And then like obviously the progression of the sport, I'm doing lots of rail, like going to more and more urban. I didn't have any wind shots, but I want to bring some level of commitment into it. So like obviously a easier out closeout was cool. I did a rail to like wood. So shifty through like the football goal style, I thought would be cool.
Stomped it too. Just absolutely
it
stomped
felt good. Yeah, it felt good to like have, you know, the whole thing. And like I totally understand, like obviously every rider that has a vision of a trick and a setup that they want to build or a spot that they want to winch at and like to put it together. And like when you bring it to life, that is like the satisfaction. And that's the best part, is like you have the idea, you're not sure if it's going to work. Can you pull it off? Like, how many times is it going to take? How many hits? How many days? And then you put it together, and that feels good.
You watch it back, and you're like, yep, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
So, like, that fence gap to back lip that I did with Randall driving, and then the cab 7, probably.
Okay.
Those one felt good.
I think cab 7 was my favorite. It's cool. It was cool. You did like a 180, then, yeah. Okay. Let's talk Wakebrothers.
Yes, let's do let's do it.
And I don't mean you and Raph.
Oh,
I
I know.
The show MTV.
I mean, there are many Wakebrothers, and there keeps being more.
They keep spawning. Yeah, they're just more and more.
That's great. I love it.
Brothers. We should get another Wakebrothers MTV run. I mean, run it back. What was it like to be involved in the show? I got a lot of questions, but
interesting to say the least. Very interesting. It was each episode was 5 days of filming. And the week went from the weekend was Monday, Tuesday. So it went from Wednesday to Sunday.
Your weekend was Monday, Tuesday. You guys had Monday,
Tuesday.
The
filming was off.
Okay.
So I lived at that house. I'd been living there. I lived there 4 years with Phil. And I think that was year 3. But on the show, I didn't live there. I was just a friend. And the hardest part was that I lived there, but there's a crew there of like 12 to 18 people, and then like all the other people that need to be there, whether it's catering, and then like all the invited riders that are part of the episode and this and that. But I'm trying to live my normal life. So I'd come in, and like I'd try and leave the house as much as possible. So for example, I'd go ride at Rathy's with Raph in the morning. Then I'd come back to make myself lunch before I go to the cable park in the afternoon, right? So I walk in, and I'm all quiet. I'm making a sandwich. But, like, Phil's kitchen at the time was quite echoey. So, like, I drop my knife on the table. It goes ding. And then I hear, what the fuck was that? And I'm like, they're in the middle of, like, doing interviews. And, like, I dinged. And I'm like, they come out, and they're so angry. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but like I also live here and I'm trying to eat. Like, unless you want to give me money to go like eat out of the house, like I also need to do my thing. Like, I get it. Like, you know, do you want me to text you next time and be early and like, hey, I'm gonna come and make myself lunch from like 1 to 1:30? Like, can you take a break? Whatever. Like, I don't know. So they were just like, okay, no problem. Text us next time, whatever. There was also a time where I was like, can I have a budget to go to the gym? Because like all the equipment for me to work out that's in the garage is like piled on with like camera gear and stuff. And I'm like, I can't really do anything. And they just cleared some stuff around. So, you know, there was some good and some bad about that whole thing. Like,
Somewhat accommodating, it sounds like, though. At least they tried.
yeah, they made it work. And you know what? Like, the crew was fun. The gang was fun. The experience was very interesting, but like it's kind of surreal because in a way, like never would I have imagined that I would be on a TV show like that. Then again, we were doing it with all our friends. And as kooky as it was, we were all so scared it was going to come off even more kooky. Like, I remember, like, with Bob at night, we'd have so many conversations. I was like, dude, you guys get to dictate how wakeboarding is going to come off to the world. And I was always so upset that it would be, like, 3 cutaway shots of, like, an ungrabbed scarecrow on a choppy day, because that is when they scheduled we were going to wakeboard at 12:30 when the sun's all the way up and it's windy as. And I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like, let's make it where it's about, like, yes, you guys, but let's make wakeboarding cool. But MTV is more about, like,
They're going to run their show.
Everything else, the drama and the bullshit.
Yeah.
Which there was quite a bit of.
That's what does the numbers, man. That's what the people want to see when they're watching MTV, I guess.
But, like, none of us are actors. So when they say reality TV, it's like, well, you're real people. But then imagine we just had this whole conversation and then someone walks in and says, hey, let's do it again. But instead of saying it this way, say it that way and then say that.
So meaning like a moment would happen in the show and they were like, oh, that's a good moment. Let's tweak it a little bit. Run it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, dude.
It's not how this really works for us. We're not actors.
We're just, you know, like, it is strange and we're conscious that there's cameras and whatnot. But, like, you know, it's weird and funny and, like, we're not actors. Like, you want me to, like, try and reenact that? Like, that's naughty. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't seem fun anymore if it's not organic.
100%.
I'm grateful for the experience, but I always get nervous and cringe when people bring it up because I'm like, oh man, that was so weird.
Did they pay you for? Did they pay?
They paid you per episode.
Was it different per person, or was it? I mean, obviously Bob and Phil.
Of course, it was different.
Deal, but
like, I think, like, you know, obviously Bob and Phil got paid way more than we did, but it's their show and they're on every episode and, like, the time that they have to put in and, like, their brand as a person also, like, whether it goes well or not, like, you know, there's also implications. I forget. I think I got paid like between $500 and $800 per episode.
It's not great. It's not great
for a full week's work.
Yeah.
And then, like, those days that you're filming, you're on call. Like, you don't get to go practice. You don't get to see your friends. You don't get to ride. You don't get to work out. You don't get to do anything. You're just there. And then, like, in my head, I was like, I'm wearing my Rockstar hat. I'm wearing my Oakley hat. Like, I'm getting my brands as much screen time as possible. And, like, I'm going to try and milk that on my next contract and get some incentives. Nobody cared. Nobody asked anything. Like, I would send them screenshots and, like, whatever. And they were just like, we pay you to have our logo on. Like,
thanks for doing your job, man.
You know, there's no photo incentive for this.
Was there a rail jam in that show? Downtown Orlando or somewhere in Florida?
There was a rail jam in Florida, and it was downtown Orlando.
Was it real?
I mean, we rode. Yeah, it was real.
I don't know. Quinn Silvernail commented something the other day, and he was like, it was a real but fake rail jam for the show. And I wasn't.
So I saw that, and I can't remember if it was meant to have, like, prize money and, like, results, or if it was like a jam. Like, I don't remember.
Okay.
Like, I just remember that I was like, I don't want to get hurt. I just want to ride and not get hurt because it's always janky, a little bit at least, and, like, it's fun, but, like, you know, I'm like what's the purse? Like, let's say it's $1,000. I'm not about to like hold on to a landing that might not be perfect and then like get ejected off the pool and
Season's over.
Season's over. Yeah. So like, I don't remember exactly. I think my vision of it was more like, we're going to go ride and then we're going to party. That sounds cool.
And MTV was like, all right, we're going to settle this up.
So I don't even remember I don't remember very much.
Quinn, I think I'll talk to Quinn about it because he seems like he had a pretty good memory on it. So interesting. Anything else unique from that experience, Wakebrothers?
I think the wildest experience was the New York episode where we rode by the Statue of Liberty. So I was the driver. So right beside me, I have a specialist to navigate those waters because there's like a lane for like the military. Yeah. Then there's like a state lane. Then there's like a federal lane. And then there's like the shuttle boat that brings people to the Staten Island and off and whatnot. So like, he's like, you see these wide buoys? If you get within 100 yards or whatever from this buoy, we're all going, like, they're coming. They're taking us in. And like, I'm Canadian. I don't know about your yards, man. Like meters or feet, kilometers, miles, but like yards, like I don't play golf. I don't play football. Like I don't know. So I'm so nervous. It's choppy as I'm trying to get some nice water. Phil's freaking out. Bob jumps in. I'm driving boat. Like this whole thing. And I'm like in the middle of it. Like it was really cool, but it was also like, why am I driving? Like, why is it me?
Well, you have the Canadian and American waters worrying about distances and all that stuff.
Scapegoat. Blame the Canadian.
That's true. Good point. They thought that one through, I'm sure.
Je ne parle pas anglais.
Oui, oui. Loonies and Toonies. What was it like living with Phil Sobin? Because you said you lived for 4 years with him?
Yeah, on and off 4 years. Like, same as the projects. I'd go there in the spring, and then in the fall, and then summer. Summer, we're on the road. Winters, I'd go home for a couple weeks, couple months.
Get some fresh air in Canada.
Yeah. Get to play some hockey, snowboard, the holidays, family, this and that.
I mean, what was Phil like to live with?
You know how every crew's got like that one friend, like that one asshole friend? So Phil was that guy for us. So like I loved Phil. When we're having like if he's on a good day and we're having fun, like dude, best time ever. And then there's some days, I don't know if like he didn't sleep or like he didn't eat or like there's something bothering him, but like all he was looking for was like creating like some scenario where like he could get you. He just wanted to know that he could get you. It's a comment, it's an action. It's like he's just like
looking to poke you.
He's just looking to get a reaction, and knowing that he can get a reaction out of someone just made his day. But like sometimes he was so not fun to be around.
Why?
For example, like I'd try and get as many friends as possible to come ride. I'm also sponsored by Malibu. He's obviously Phil Sobin. He's got a sick-ass Malibu at the end of his dock. So he'd get out of his room, like, later in the morning and be like, how much gas did you put in? How many times did you ride? 4 gas cans? That's not enough. You owe me more. And I'm just like, dude, we both rode once, okay? We both put 2 cans in. We're good, man. You want to ride? Like, I'll drive you. Like, I asked him to ride every day. And more often than not, he was like, nah, I'll ride later when it's flat. And I was like, okay.
How often did he ride, would you say?
Not as often as you think for how good he was.
Okay. I was always curious.
So clutch. Like, obviously.
So you could say he was talented.
Dude.
Or he put the time in earlier, and then once he got it locked in.
Dude, so much time in.
Yeah.
So much time. And, like, you know, I thought I put a lot of time over the period of time. Like, he had full seasons in Florida.
Yeah. More than
twice. I had 3 months, man.
Yeah.
Like, he rode so much from such a young age.
Yeah.
And then he kept doing it and getting better. And then he filmed, and then he so many contests, and he traveled, and he kept, like, he put so much time in. So much time in. And, like, I still think to this day that he's the winningest wakeboarder ever in the history of the sport.
Yeah,
he's
I don't know the numbers
won
on
so
that.
many contests. He was the best for so long. Like, if there was a ranking, like, he was probably number 1 for the longest time.
Could you beat Dallas Friday, though?
Probably not.
Winningest male wakeboarder, probably. I'd like to know the numbers on that. That'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah, there's a season where both Phil and Bob went undefeated on the Pro Tour in Pro Men and Junior Men. And it's the year that Bob and Mitch Langfield tied at 3 of the 5 stops, but Bob got the tiebreaker.
How does a tiebreaker work? You remember?
It was like the format with the categories, I think. So if you won the 2 categories with the highest percentage, or like there was something like that.
Yeah.
So like
It was written in that.
It's the
Okay.
tiebreaker that went to the tiebreaker. Like I think it was the second or third tiebreaker. But that was a crazy year. Like to see them both like put it down every time,
That's
every
insane.
round, every condition. You know, I remember a time Phil was so damn good. He fell on a crow 5 of all tricks because he would never fall on a skeezer 5. Fell on a crow 5 against Chad Sharp in Fort Worth, and the whole crowd cheered. It was crazy. Like we're talking about Raph and Verstappen, like always winning. Like Phil fell, people got happy. It was crazy.
Wow.
But he was that good. The guy didn't he always found a way.
Well, and he knew how to win too. He knew how to win contests.
This one time he pulled out like a Moby Dick 7 to win. This other time he pulled out a Pete 5. I've never seen him do a Pete 5. I had just learned a Pete 5. He pulled out a Pete 5 at Wake Games to win. I was like, when did what?
He just has it.
Just could deliver when needed.
Pressure
was
makes
insane.
diamonds. It's Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, big time players make big time plays. That's
Yeah.
what happens. Let's talk 1080. Nautique Wake Games 2012, right? I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. Harley stumped the first one,
Mhm.
right? You stumped the second.
Mm.
How bummed are you didn't go first?
Dude, so the 2 weeks leading to that event were on the deadline for lip smack. I had landed one 1080 off the wake at Rusty's with JD for Jeff McKee put on this like 1080 camp for the magazine.
Yeah.
And that was my first 1080. I landed it. I did it off the wake. Now there's a G. I'm for 2 weeks straight. As soon as it's decent, I'm waking up at like crack ass of dawn, driving over from Claremont. I was living at Dillon. No, I was at Phil's. Leaving Phil's early in the morning, driving all the way to Narcoossee to ride at Murray's on his G that's going to be released at Wake Games to try and film a 10. For 2 weeks straight, couldn't put it down. I'm so angry. I'm so pissed off. I didn't make it through my round. I've got all of like that anger, and then Harley goes before me, falls on a regular toe 10, gets back up, lands the switch toe 10. I am so fired up. First crack, first tee off the wake. I did it. And it was like, you know, one of those moments where like, I wish like this could happen and like it happens. One of those moments.
That was one of those.
Yeah, like such a good release.
Whose claim was better?
Oh, mine for sure.
Yours was way better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had so... like, you're talking about underdogs. Like, I've always felt like an underdog. So when I got that moment, I was like, yeah!
I mean, Harley was stoked, but then I saw you land yours, and it was just like, oh, yeah. Harley is pumped up right now.
It meant a lot more to me, I think. You know?
Yeah, I could see that for sure. All right. I got a couple.
But the cool part about that is Nautique both gave us the $5,000 purse.
They honored the...
They honored for both of
cool.
us. And then
Should be.
I found a knife and I split the check in half so we could both take a little memorabilia home.
Nice.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's pretty sweet. That's awesome. 10,000 for 1080s. IWWF or WWA?
It's a no questions WWA. I understand why, and I see the value in the IWWF. Unfortunately, in North America, in wakeboarding, it doesn't work.
Why?
So the structure of the federations and the association and how they are funded through the government. So it's like, you know, it's, I guess, through the IOC to a certain degree, and then like the different, I guess, events are federated, or like there are different levels. So like the Olympics, the Pan Ams, the this, the that, you know. So essentially, the funding comes through the water skiing channel. So they basically, when I say they, the water skiing organizations have the control of how those funds are spent. And obviously, wakeboarding has not been able to get their, what I like to think, their fair share. Obviously, even if I'm biased, if we just looked at the stats and the data, like it's quite easy and cut and dry to see that wakeboarding is not even getting close to what they should be.
Yeah.
That being said, I think in other continents, under different flags, they are able to put in a functional system to support riders to at least get around to travel and make some events and have an impact enough to hopefully get some sponsor dollars. You know, there's a lot of pro riders that are funded mostly by their federation, and that's sick. Okay? I wish I would have had that opportunity. We only could bank on the opportunity and the idea that some brands were going to see value in what we did and that we were going to be able to actually earn a living from it. Doing it through the federation is that much better. You're followed, you're supported. Okay, sure, it's probably more of a like typical sport vision and trajectory, following with the coach and the training and, you know, all of the very disciplined stuff, which at the end of the day, wakeboarding already took that trajectory. If you want to be amongst the best, you have to know what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and, you know, put the time. So if you need to be in shape and be flexible and eat better, like, you must follow suit. And I feel like I got to see that progression from like the party side of wakeboarding into like, you need to be fit, you need to train, you need to do yoga, you need to do these things to have a better preparation. Well, obviously, WWA, IWF, they're two different. They're the yin to the yang.
It just doesn't really work here in North America, is what you're saying right now. Without how
I
money is.
hope to God that it'll change in the future.
Yeah.
I'm actually involved. I'm on the Wake Canada board, so I'm just the Wake committee. Once a month we have a meeting. I'm sorry, guys. The last few months I haven't been around for the meetings. I try and follow up with the emails. But yeah, I mean, I like to be involved. I care enough to know what's happening, and I want to give the best opportunities for the next generation of riders to be able to, you know, get the experience and to live the things that
Carry
will
the
make
torch.
carry the torch, and for them to be able to accomplish their dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a good answer. Boat or cable?
Do I have to choose one?
Yeah.
Well, to me, boat is more accessible, so boat. But god damn, I love hitting rails and kickers. Like, boat is softer on the knees. You can also like wake surf and foil and like, you know, cruise around, just driving around, which is already fun. You know, hanging out at the cable park if you're not going to ride is not as much fun, you know, for starters.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
I mean, it depends where you go and who's there and which park you go to.
I'd say the same about being on a boat, man. I don't know.
For sure, yeah. I mean, if it's on my boat, then I get to control the environment.
That's
right?
true. I just don't like sitting on a boat with a bunch. With
So I'd say
wake surfing.
51 boat, 49 cable. That's probably how I've approached my career.
And when it comes to watching wakeboarding, what would you rather watch? You can throw a winch in there too if you want.
Well, I mean, are we watching just like a contest or are we watching a video?
Purely for your entertainment.
I think it's more about who I'm watching than what discipline I'm watching.
Interesting.
Because, you know, the good thing about social media is that there is so much content. It is also its downfall. It dilutes it so much that if I see another ungrabbed toeback 7 pre-spun on a big fat kicker, like,
I did one yesterday, but
hey, they're fun to do. Doesn't mean that everybody wants to watch it.
100% agree.
And I'm just saying that as in, like, you know, there's really good content, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. Like, it's always fun to watch, except that too much is, like, not enough, right? So if everyone's posting everything all day, every day, then, like, it doesn't have the same appeal, doesn't have the same impact.
So it doesn't matter what they're doing. It's about who you're watching.
Yes.
Okay.
I like to watch cable. I watch probably more cable than boat. There's more cable content too.
Would you rather watch a full boat part, full cable part, or a full winch part with your favorite rider?
Full winch part, of course, no
Okay.
matter what. Full winch part. Like, if someone's gonna put it out there, I know the effort that it requires to just even attempt to get a clip.
I'd rather watch a mediocre winch part than like a very good boat or cable part, personally.
That's legit.
Yeah.
That's legit.
All right. Okay, I like it.
That's
okay.
legit.
Should Tara Mikasic have punched you in the face or your brother Raph?
She should have punched me. Well, so if someone would have had been punched, it should have been me. That being said, I don't think anybody deserved to get punched.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Do you know the story?
I know the story.
Tell me.
So there was some meat hanging around at a table, some raw meat.
Okay.
And there was some meat throwing. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't retell the story.
Okay.
If you wanted to retell it, I'm
Yeah,
sure
so
people would
we're
love
in
to hear it.
Japan. We're in Tokyo. It's the Tokyo Pro. Malibu for a couple years put on a Triple Crown event, 3 stops. So there was always one U.S. continent and then one in Europe, one in Asia. So the whole Malibu team would go out to a shabu shabu, which is like you have a boiling broth, and then you got some meats and some veggies, and you get to dip and cook it to your liking, and you eat, and then we're all talking, we're all having a great time. We're in Tokyo, man. Wakeboarding took us to Japan. It's so sick, right? We're all having a good time. Tara is vegan at the time. I think she still is. And, obviously, we're not dipping our stuff in her bowl, and, we're careful of that. But at the end of the night, I think it was me and somebody else, like maybe Massey and Parker. Not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but I think it was the 3 of us mostly. But what we did with the food that we weren't going to finish, and we stuffed it in a little cloth, and then a little further up the road, we started throwing them at each other. So it was like mushroom, this, and a little piece of meat, and this and that. But all there was left at the end was the cloth. And it was a little pink from a bit of blood. So it kept getting tossed. And then Tara said a few times, like, you guys know not to get that near me. And then we're literally like 200 feet away from the hotel door. And it happened so quickly. Someone threw it to me, and it landed on my shoulder, and I tossed it forward, and it just happened to graze over and around Tara's face. Like,
It didn't land on her?
from what I remember, because it was on the floor, unless it landed and that quickly she took it and slammed it on the floor. It got really close to her face. It might have touched her face. I don't know how hard, it's all good, light humor, like everyone's funny, yeah. And then she turns around and everybody goes silent, and the eyes she had was like, someone's gonna die. And then Raph was right beside me, and Raph wasn't playing, but Raph, when he gets nervous, he giggles a little bit. So he kind of had a little smirk, and she totally thought it was him. She walks up to him, she grabs him, she clocks him right in the jaw. And I was like, oh. I was like, Tara, you shouldn't have done that. If you were going to do that to someone, it should have been me, because it was me. But it happened so fast. It was a crazy scenario, but it's like siblings at this stage.
Yeah.
We've been traveling together for 3-4 years, photo shoots, events, demos, lessons. We're like brother and sister. We're hanging out all the time. We're probably hanging out over 14 days a year, sleeping in the same hotels.
Well,
taking
traveling
the same
together
flights,
changes it all.
all of that, right?
Yeah.
So at the end, I went up to a room and I knocked. I said, Tara, I'm so sorry. Things escalated quickly. I shouldn't have done that. You probably shouldn't have done that. And I understand, tomorrow's finals. You're all worked up. I'm worked up. Raph's jaw hurts. No one's getting anything good out of this. I'm sorry that, it stemmed from me. I apologize.
Don't fuck with Tara.
Don't fuck with Tara.
That's fact.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Absolute fact.
And at the end of the day, the biggest loser were Raph and Tara. And it all was caused from me. And they both were the biggest loser. They both podiumed next day.
I was gonna say, didn't they do
which
pretty
were
well?
great. Yeah. I felt like I probably should have made final, but I didn't.
That might be karma.
It might have been karma.
A little bad juju there. What do you think is the most underrated wakeboard trick?
That's a good question.
Thank you. Could be boat, could be cable.
I'm
Could
my
be
brain
in
went
general.
to boat right away.
That's what I was kind of figuring where it'd go. Because you just said boat. 51 boat.
I mean, I think a Pete Rose is a good one, because if you can't get past the stage of
Getting smoked.
yes, and then I would say another one would be something like a toe back 5. Those are
On the boat specifically.
some secret tricks. Not secret tricks, but like some tricks
Sneaky
that will
underrated.
secretly take you out.
Yeah. If you're playing a game of wake,
Like
sneak in
for a
towback
second,
drive.
if you're not present, you go too early or too late, and like you clip the wake or like you overshoot, undershoot, like you might be in trouble.
Yeah. I like those answers.
Thank you.
Other side of the coin.
Mm.
Most overrated trick.
Toeback 7 on cable.
100% agree. 1000% agree. That should not be in a contest run in any men's finals ever.
Hold on.
I'm not gonna.
Ungrabbed, pre-spun, toeback 7.
I don't think the pre-spun factors. I think if it's ungrabbed. I think even if you take it off teed up, doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
Okay. I like that answer. That's a good answer. What about boat side of things? I got a good one, but
Rap KGB.
I knew you were going to say that. That was the one I was going to say.
Actually, I went and judged U.S. Cable Nationals this year at Terminus. And can you guess what the 2 most done tricks of the weekend were? Pro, amateur, male, female. On kickers only. 1 toe side hit, 1 heel side hit.
I mean, KGB. Rap KGB was one of them.
KGB.
On a cable, too, you don't have a wrap handle.
No, not even wrapped. Just KGB,
KGB.
and toeback 7.
Well, toeback 7, I think, is
They
one
were
of
the
the
most
easiest
done tricks. The most done tricks.
Well, they're the easiest.
I've never done a KGB on kicker.
Me neither. So
And after seeing that, I'm not tempted to.
well,
I'm not tempted to do it on the boat either anymore.
Toeback 7, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with both those. That's good answers. What's the favorite place that wakeboarding has taken you? 'Cause you've gone quite a lot of places.
I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to go to Australia because it's one of my favorite places in the world. And I've gone quite a few times now. And it's still one of my favorite places to go to. I would just say that my favorite place that wakeboarding's taken me is around the world. Like,
Just to travel in general.
just to travel in general. Like just the sheer opportunity to see the world because I was passionate enough about something to chase it, to elevate my riding, and to be involved enough that brands saw enough value in me that they were like, hey, we're going to send you to talk to people and do your thing around the world because it's going to help our company. Like the fact that I've been able to, the only continent I haven't been to is Africa.
You've been to Antarctica?
No.
Okay.
Close enough.
Yeah?
Yeah, I went to New Zealand and I went to Parry Sound, which is all the way at the bottom.
Interesting.
And is the most southern part of, I guess, the world,
Yeah.
other than Antarctica.
Interesting. Okay. Travel in general. I mean, I like that. That's a good answer. But Australia is one of the top ones for you.
Yeah, like the weird ones would be like Chile, Saudi Arabia, Russia. Obviously, like Asia's super rad. Japan, Korea, Philippines.
A lot of places.
I mean, I've got to see so much of Europe. Like, at the end of the day, like, getting to wakeboard and travel and to see the world is amazing. And then everyone's like, oh, you got to see everywhere and do all. I'm like, well, you need to see it in a different perspective. So we get to go somewhere. We see the airport. We see a hotel. We see typically an event site. And then one restaurant or two, and then maybe a bar. And then that's about it. So everything in between. So, like, it's not like we go long enough to, like, go visit all these things that we want to see and to experience the rest of the things. So if we were lucky enough, it was an event that was put on by a sponsor that would get you in early for press or for something else, and then you had time to experience 1 day or 2 more days of, like, local things and activities. And then if they're showing up early, they want to go see a place or go to a certain restaurant, and then you obviously get invited and you get to experience it.
Get a little bit more.
Those are the best parts.
Okay. I like that. So let's talk about, you had a long, fruitful career, and it kind of heated up towards the end of it. I mean, you did win the Wakefest shootout. What was that? 2018? 2017?
I think it 2018.
2018. Okay.
I think 2018.
I think, was that the last year's 50 Gs, or maybe it wasn't? Maybe
it was
next year.
It was
Gunther
the
got
second
it.
last year that was 50.
Okay. So I guess the lead into that is kind of, when do you start seeing the end of your wakeboard career as a sponsored rider, when does that start happening, and when do you start realizing that maybe this is kind of coming to an end for me as a rider?
I mean, I knew that I was like a late bloomer. So like, most of the guys that I looked up to were like a year or two older than me. Like the whole Pointless crew, like they're not that much older than me. Although they were my idols, we're about the same age. So like I came in older, but with like a younger perspective and bloomed with a younger crowd. So I was always conscious of that I was like on the older end of like, I guess, my generation. So I knew that like, obviously I was aware of all the youngsters that were coming up in the talent. So I knew that competitive wise, like at a certain point, actually the year I turned 30, I was like, this is going to be probably my last best competitive season. And then I ruptured my Achilles. And then from there, I was like, I'm going to make my comeback, and then we'll see. So like 30, 31, last year competed was 32. And then after that, my contracts ran out, and I knew I was going to be done competing. But those last few years, like I set myself up with the sponsors to be able to bring value in other aspects than like my contest results. And that being said, like, no brands invested in me because solely of my contest results, because I was not your podium guy. I won 3 pro contests in my life. I made maybe a dozen podiums. I was not like the guy that was on the box at the end of every weekend. I was the one that made friends with everyone, and then like I would stay up all night, not necessarily drinking myself to shreds, but like if there was something happening, I wanted to be there.
You were around.
I was around.
Yeah.
And like if they're coaching and teaching and doing demos, I'm involved. I grew up learning how to teach with JF Gosselin on his tour in Quebec. I worked at the projects. I learned how to judge. I judged provincials. I judged Canadian nationals. So I ended up judging the Pro Tour for a couple years. I judged like some cable events for the WWA. So like I always found a way to stay involved because I cared and I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be there. I wanted, if I got to choose how I was going to get paid, well, I wanted to get paid doing what I liked, what I loved.
Which is
what I still love.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of that, I mean, what's your transition been like? What do you do? You just kind of mentioned some of the stuff you do, but what do you do now in terms of, because you're still involved in the industry. So what do you do now?
So I'm a sales rep for a couple different brands. So I started when I was still riding. I introduced Follow to the Canadian distributor who used to sponsor me through Hyperlight Aeronix. So Murray Fraser distributes Follow in Canada. So he was like, hey, do you want to take over Quebec? So I said, yeah, sure. I'd love to do that. So I did that for 1 year. So I've been doing that for 7 years now. So I started with Follow in Quebec. And then the next year, Steve, the founder of Follow and still brand manager, was like, hey, we need some help to grow it out in the US. You want to help? And I was like, yeah. So then I grabbed it and ran. And I started getting involved in the sales aspect. And then a couple years later on, my buddy Jeff House, who's the sales manager for aftermarket at Roswell, hit me up. He's like, hey, I hear you've been doing sales in, the Northeast and the East Coast for Follow and that you're doing well. Like, are you interested in joining Roswell and helping out, grow the brand and the awareness and the product in the Northeast? And I was like, yeah, I'm interested. Let's talk more. So I got involved there. It's been like 4 years there. And then you mentioned it earlier, but at the end of the midsummer, I was like, okay, so I need to find a different brand that offers a different category of products. So I do Follow, I do soft goods. I do Roswell, I do aftermarket boat parts. I need hard goods. So I reached out, Billy Witcher, shout out, and I had the conversation with him. And he's like, well, let me speak to Colin, the sales manager at Liquid Force, and to Don Wallace, and we'll see what they think, and we'll go from there. And that was a Friday, and on the Monday, I had a meeting. So the next week, it was about time to hit the road, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening so quick. Luckily, the samples were arriving to the U.S. delayed, So I had more time to get my shit together, to sort out my stuff, and to organize my life to be able to hit the road and like to do it properly. But yeah, so that's what I do now. I'm in sales. So I essentially have my own agency. So I do a couple different brands for different territories. So I do Quebec, Ontario. I do the whole East Coast down to Florida. And then I do, with follow, I do still the mountain states. So Utah, Colorado, Montana, Idaho.
The mountain states. Interesting.
That's what I call them.
Well, I mean, no, you're right. That's an interesting group of United States that you got there. You've been
Because at first I did the whole U.S. on my own.
Yeah.
And then eventually I had too many accounts and I was like, I can't do it. And like, I also do Quebec and like, I also want to have a life. And like, I can't spend all of my income on traveling. So Steve was like, well, you should assemble a sales team. So I hit up Derek Grassman, who took the whole Central from Midwest to South Central. And then the next year I got Jimmy Trask on board to do the West Coast.
There you go.
So my boys.
Got your own little squad going.
Yeah. And that's my favorite part of like, I created those relationships years ago. And then by still being involved and by being curious and still showing up, some opportunities come. Sometimes you have to seek them out. But good things happen if you care and you show up.
Good thing happens when you're around. Absolutely to that. How often would you say you wakeboard?
This year was a different year. So this year I wakeboarded once on the boat, 2 or 3 times on cable. I water skied in the course 4 times. I wake surfed twice and I foiled twice. And I e-foiled twice.
Okay.
So I did everything, but I didn't do it nearly as much because I had a wedding to prepare. I got married and I went on a honeymoon. And then by the time I came back, it was selling season.
Fair enough. Wedding kind of jogs a little bit there. You going to up those numbers next year?
Yeah.
Next summer?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the goal is, especially with Liquid Force, is like I want everyone to know how to sell the product. And how to sell the product is you need to know what they feel like. So my goal is to get on the water with everyone.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about? Anyone you want to thank? Anything like that?
Man, at this stage, like I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of things.
We talked about a lot of things.
We could probably do a part 2 and keep chatting. But no, I don't think I have anything else to say. Do you?
We'll find out in a couple days.
Yeah, we will.
All right. Anyone you want to thank, whether through your career, family, friends?
I have so many
like
people I'd like to thank. So if I don't mention you, I apologize. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my parents and my family for the support and the opportunity. All the people that have helped me and supported me along the way, given me a chance to live my dream. Obviously, my wife, Charlotte. I love you very much. And you for caring and loving the sport enough to dedicate your time to put on this show and to keep showing up.
Absolutely. Did I come before Raph there, or did you already mention Raph?
I said my family, so Raph is included.
I'm going to half count that one. I'm going to half count that one.
Hey, how many praises do I need to give that little rascal?
All right. I think we're going to wrap this up.
I miss you. I haven't seen you in a while. I miss you.
Love you too, Raph. Miss you. Only saw you once, but it was great. All right. I say we wrap this up here. Thank you for coming on, Ollie. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the podcast, join the Patreon. Grab some merch on the website. You guys know the deal. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you.